Hey there, and welcome to Crime for Sleep. I know you're having trouble falling asleep, so let me keep you company with true crime stories from around the world. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where did you first hear this one? If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's case. Crime 1, they were nailed flat against every surface, floor, ceiling, even the joists. Some were shattered, others spotless. When a light was shined inside, a single word appeared in red lipstick across the reflections. Watch. No one knew who it was written for or from where. The discovery came 3 weeks after Alina Winters disappeared from her colonial-style home in Millfield, Pennsylvania. Ellie, as everyone called her, had lived alone since her divorce 2 years prior. She was 43, a librarian at the local community college with soft brown hair and a quiet demeanor that made her forgettable to some but deeply appreciated by others. Her sister Maureen described Ellie as the kind of person who remembered your birthday without social media reminders. Colleagues noted how she would leave handwritten book recommendations in faculty mailboxes, always perfectly matched to the recipient's interests. Her ex-husband, Thomas, though long moved away to Seattle, still spoke of her kindness despite their separation. Ellie's daily routine rarely deviated. She walked to work when weather permitted, stopping at Harmon's Cafe for a medium chai latte. She volunteered at the animal shelter on Tuesday evenings and attended a book club every second Thursday at the public library. Her home, a modest 2-story with black shutters and a small garden, sat on the corner of Maple and Pine, just 3 blocks from the town square. Detective Aaron Sloan would later remark that disappearances in small towns like Millfield carried a particular weight. When someone vanishes from a tight community, they leave a person-shaped hole behind that everyone notices, he said, not like cities where people can slip through the cracks without anyone looking up from their phones. The first sign something was wrong came on a Monday in late October. Ellie hadn't shown up for work. Her desk remained empty, her computer untouched. By afternoon, 3 unanswered calls from the head librarian prompted a colleague to drive to her house. Ellie's navy blue Civic sat in the driveway. The porch light was on despite the daylight. The morning newspaper remained rolled in its plastic sleeve by the front door. I knocked for nearly 5 minutes, recalled Dana Winters, no relation to Ellie. I could hear her cat meowing inside. That's when I knew something was wrong. Ellie would never leave Oscar without food. Local police conducted a wellness check. The front door was locked, as were all windows. Nothing appeared disturbed inside. The kitchen counter held a half-empty cup of tea, stone cold. Ellie's phone lay charging on her nightstand. Her purse hung on its usual hook by the back door, wallet and keys inside. Oscar the cat was anxious but healthy, his food and water bowls recently filled. Detective Sloan noted in his preliminary report, no signs of forced entry or struggle. Subject appears to have vanished without taking essentials. Cell phone records show last activity at 9:17 p.m. prior evening, a text message to her sister confirming lunch plans for coming weekend. The first 72 hours of a missing persons investigation are critical. Sloan and his partner, Detective Renee Washington, interviewed neighbors, colleagues, and friends. They established a timeline. Ellie had been seen Sunday afternoon at the local grocery store. Security footage showed her purchasing milk, bread, and cat food. She exchanged pleasant conversation with the cashier about an upcoming library fundraiser. The next-door neighbor, Mrs. Gladys Peterson, an elderly woman with a reputation for vigilant observation of street activity, reported seeing lights on in Ellie's home until approximately 10:30 p.m. Sunday. I take my sleeping pill at 10, but I remember glancing out before drawing my curtains, she told detectives. Ellie's reading lamp was on in the front room, same as most nights. By day 5, the investigation had yielded little progress. Ellie's bank accounts showed no activity. Her social media, limited to a rarely updated Facebook page, offered no clues. Thomas, the ex-husband, had a solid alibi, being 3,000 miles away at a conference with dozens of witnesses. It was Maureen who first suggested checking the crawl space. Ellie always hated that part of the house, she explained to Detective Washington while helping to search the home a second time. She said it gave her the creeps, especially after she found some old journals from the previous owners stored down there. The crawlspace access was located in the back of the guest bedroom closet, a small wooden hatch secured with a simple sliding bolt. Detectives needed to remove several storage boxes to reach it. The bolt slid open with unexpected ease, as if recently used. Detective Sloan later described the moment in his case notes. Upon opening the access panel, an immediate sense of wrongness pervaded the scene. The beam from my flashlight reflected back in multiple directions. The crawl space, approximately 8 feet deep and running the width of the bedroom, had been lined entirely with mirrors, some appearing old, others newer. They covered every available surface, including the dirt floor, which had been overlaid with plywood to support the mirror placement. The mirrors themselves were unremarkable household items, the kind found in any department store or thrift shop. Some were cracked or clouded with age, others looked recently purchased. The careful arrangement suggested methodical installation over time. Most disturbing was the message, visible only when light struck the mirrors at certain angles. Across multiple reflective surfaces, red lipstick spelled out a single word: watch. Forensic analysis would later determine the lipstick matched a brand found in Ellie's bathroom drawer, though the handwriting analysis was inconclusive. The crawlspace contained one other item. A small digital video camera mounted in the corner, its lens directed toward the center of the space. The camera had no memory card, though the battery was fully charged. As news of the discovery spread through Millfield, residents began to look at their quiet town differently. People started checking their own crawl spaces and basements. Locks were changed, security systems installed. Detective Washington focused her attention on the previous owners of Ellie's home. The property records showed the house had changed hands 4 times in the past decade, an unusual turnover rate for the stable neighborhood. The owners immediately before Ellie, the Hendersons, had moved to Florida after just 8 months of residence. When contacted, Mrs. Henderson became audibly distressed. "We thought we were going crazy," she admitted. "Things would move around the house. We'd hear footsteps at night. My husband insisted it was just an old house settling, but I knew something was wrong. We never checked the crawl space. We never even opened it." The investigation expanded to include all former residents. A pattern emerged: short-term occupancy, reports of discomfort, unexplained noises. One former owner, Benjamin Reeves, had filed a police report 3 years earlier about a suspected break-in, though nothing was taken and no evidence of forced entry was found. Meanwhile, forensic technicians carefully documented and removed the mirrors from the crawlspace. Each was photographed, numbered, and checked for fingerprints or other evidence. Most contained only Ellie's prints or smudges too partial to identify. 3 mirrors, however, showed clear prints belonging to neither Ellie nor any known resident or visitor. 6 days after the crawlspace discovery, another development occurred. A local teenager walking his dog along Crescent Creek, half a mile from Ellie's home, found a woman's scarf caught on a fallen branch near the water. The blue cashmere accessory was identified by Maureen as belonging to her sister, a birthday gift from the previous year. A search of the creek and surrounding woods yielded no further evidence. The water was low due to autumn drought, the current minimal. If Ellie had entered the creek, voluntarily or otherwise, her body should have been visible or caught on the numerous rocks and fallen trees. Detective Sloan ordered ground-penetrating radar surveys of the area and brought in cadaver dogs, but no trace of human remains was detected. The case grew colder as October gave way to November, then December. Then came the first letter. It arrived at the police station in a plain white envelope addressed to Detective Sloan in carefully printed block letters. Inside was a single sheet of paper containing 3 sentences. She sees everything now. The mirrors show the truth. Don't look too long. Handwriting analysis proved inconclusive, matching neither Ellie's writing nor any samples in the criminal database. No fingerprints or DNA were recovered from the paper or envelope. The postmark showed it had been mailed from Philadelphia, 70 miles away. A second letter arrived 2 weeks later, this time at Maureen's home. Ask about the basement of the library. Ask about 1977. The Millfield Community College Library had been renovated in the early 2000s, but before that, it had included a basement level used primarily for storage. In 1977, according to archived newspaper reports, a 19-year-old student named Caroline Mathies had disappeared after working a late shift reshelving books. Her case was never solved. When detectives revisited the library basement, now converted to administrative offices, they discovered something unusual behind a recently installed wall panel. A small, tarnished hand mirror, its reflective surface scratched with the word "Watch." The connection between Caroline's decades-old disappearance and Ellie's recent vanishing remained elusive. No evidence linked the cases beyond the mirror and the shared workplace. Caroline's family had moved away years ago, and most of the staff from that era had retired or passed away. Another month passed. Winter settled over Millfield with unusual severity. Snow piled against Ellie's empty house. Mail accumulated despite Maureen's regular visits to collect it. Oscar the cat now lived with Maureen, adapting slowly to his new environment. On a particularly cold January morning, Detective Washington received an anonymous tip. Check the basement of 412 Westbrook Avenue, an address across town from Ellie's home. The property belonged to an elderly man named Harold Simmons who had been in a nursing home for the past 3 years. His house stood vacant, looked after occasionally by a property management company. With a warrant in hand, detectives entered the neglected Victorian house. The basement door was locked with a new padlock that didn't match the aged door. Inside, they found a room transformed. Like the crawl space in Ellie's home, every surface had been covered with mirrors, some new, others antique. In the center of the room stood a chair. On the concrete floor surrounding it, a perfect circle had been drawn in what appeared to be salt. There was no sign of Ellie Winters, no evidence she had ever been there. Forensic teams found no blood, no fingerprints except those matching the unidentified prints from Ellie's crawl space. The property management company claimed no knowledge of the basement modifications and provided documentation showing their last interior inspection had occurred 6 months earlier, noting nothing unusual. As winter melted into spring, the investigation continued without resolution. Theories abounded, from serial kidnapping to elaborate hoax to voluntary disappearance. Some speculated Ellie had staged her own vanishing, though no one could offer a plausible motive. On the 1-year anniversary of Ellie's disappearance, Maureen received a postcard showing the Millfield town square. The message, in unfamiliar handwriting, read simply, "I see everything now. Don't look for me in reflections." The case of Alina Winters remains officially open but inactive. Detective Sloan retired 6 months after the investigation began, citing health concerns. Detective Washington transferred to a different precinct. The house on Maple and Pine eventually sold to a young couple from out of state, the crawl space permanently sealed during renovations. Sometimes residents of Millfield claim to see a woman resembling Ellie walking near Crescent Creek at dusk. By the time they turn for a second look, the figure always vanishes, like a reflection distorted by rippling water, there one moment and gone the next. Crime 2, wrapped in plastic, perfectly preserved. When they unsealed the bag, the toy was damp and heavy. Inside its belly, a tightly folded note that read, "She made me cold too." Attached was a hospital bracelet. The name had been scratched out. It was March 27, 2018, when the small town of Pinewood, Michigan, confronted a mystery that would haunt its residents for years to come. Detective Layla Mercer stood in the dim basement of 437 Sycamore Street, her breath visible in the frigid air of the unfinished room. The previous owners, the Callaghan family, had abandoned the property 6 months earlier, leaving behind only this chest freezer, unplugged and forgotten in the corner. The new homeowners had discovered it while preparing to renovate. The stuffed bear, a worn teddy with one eye missing, sat on the metal examination table at the station. Crime scene technician Marcus Wells had handled it with a gentleness that seemed almost reverent. "There's something else," he told Mercer, carefully turning the bear to reveal a small incision in its back, skillfully stitched closed with what appeared to be surgical thread. Caroline Callaghan had been a pediatric nurse at Pinewood Memorial for 15 years. Divorced with one daughter, Emma, age 9. They'd moved to Sycamore Street 3 years prior, after Caroline had finalized her divorce from James Callaghan, a pharmaceutical sales representative who had since relocated to Arizona. Emma's 4th grade teacher, Ms. Patterson, described her as quiet but not unusually so. She maintained average grades and had a small circle of friends. She carried that bear everywhere, Patterson recalled during her interview. Called it Mr. Frost. I remember thinking it was an odd name for a teddy bear. Neighbors reported that the Callaghans kept to themselves. Caroline worked odd hours, said Diane Miller, who lived next door. I'd see her leaving at all times of the night, sometimes in her scrubs, sometimes not. When shown a photo of the bear, Miller's expression changed. Yes, that looks like the one Emma had. Caroline once told me her ex-husband gave it to Emma on her 5th birthday. The hospital bracelet attached to the note belonged to Pinewood Memorial. The partial date visible, 7/12, corresponded with a period when Caroline had been assigned to the pediatric intensive care unit. Records showed 5 children had been under her care that week. All were accounted for, alive and well. Mercer obtained a warrant to search the Callaghans' new residence in Traverse City, about 3 hours north. Caroline opened the door, visibly shaken by the police presence. Emma stood behind her, clutching a different stuffed animal, a rabbit with long, floppy ears. "Where's Mr. Frost?" Mercer asked Emma directly. The child's eyes darted to her mother before answering. "He's gone. Mommy said he got too dirty and we had to throw him away." Caroline's explanation was that the bear had become contaminated at the hospital during a Take Your Child to Work Day event and that she had disposed of it as a precaution. When confronted with the evidence from the freezer, she denied any knowledge. "We left that freezer behind because it was old and didn't work properly anymore. I have no idea how that got there. The note troubled Mercer the most. She made me cold, too. The handwriting analysis was inconclusive. It didn't match Caroline's known handwriting, but experts couldn't rule out that she had disguised it. In April, the investigation took an unexpected turn when a hospital administrator came forward with information about an incident from 2016. A patient, a 7-year-old girl named Lily Winters, had died unexpectedly while under Caroline's care. The official cause was listed as complications from pneumonia, but the administrator revealed that there had been an internal review. Several medications in Lily's system hadn't been prescribed. The matter had been handled internally. No charges were filed, and Caroline had been transferred to a different unit. James Callaghan, when finally reached in Scottsdale, provided another disturbing piece of the puzzle. Emma never had a bear named Mr. Frost, he stated. Caroline bought her a bear right after we separated, called it Mr. Cuddles or something similar. The name Frost meant something to Caroline, though. She had a patient she was particularly attached to, a little boy named Frost. I think his first name was Andrew. Andrew Frost didn't appear in current hospital records. Marcus Wells, the crime scene technician, spent 3 nights searching through archived files before finding a reference. Andrew Frost, age 6, admitted January 2015 with acute respiratory distress. His attending nurse had been Caroline Callaghan. Andrew had survived his illness and been discharged after 2 weeks. His family had moved away from Pinewood shortly afterward, current whereabouts unknown. The investigation stalled as summer approached. The note and bracelet yielded no fingerprints other than those of the new homeowners and the crime scene team. The surgical thread was standard hospital issue, available in any medical facility. The bear itself contained nothing but normal stuffing. Then in late July, Mercer received a call from a detective in Burlington, Vermont. A family there, the Frosts, had filed a restraining order against a woman who had been leaving gifts for their son, Andrew, now 9 years old. The woman had identified herself as Nurse Caroline and insisted she had saved Andrew when no one else could. When Mercer arrived in Vermont, she learned the Frosts had moved there specifically to distance themselves from Caroline Callaghan. She became obsessed with Andrew, explained his mother, Rebecca. At first, we thought she was just dedicated to her job. Then she started showing up at our home at his school. She told Andrew that she was his real mother because she had brought him back from the edge of death. Caroline and Emma Callaghan had disappeared from their Traverse City apartment the day after the police had questioned them about the bear. Their car was found abandoned at a bus station in Grand Rapids. In August, the forensic lab finally made a breakthrough. The dampness in the bear wasn't water from the freezer defrosting. It was a preservation solution used for tissue samples. When they analyzed the thread used to stitch the bear, they found microscopic traces of human DNA. Emma Callaghan was located in a motel outside Philadelphia on September 12th. She was alone, unharmed but severely dehydrated. Of her mother, there was no sign. The girl told investigators that her mother had left 3 days earlier to get supplies and hadn't returned. "Mommy has lots of special friends," Emma explained during her interview. "She helps them when they're sick, and sometimes she keeps them safe from their other mommies and daddies who don't take care of them right." When shown a picture of Andrew Frost, Emma nodded. "That's Andy. Mommy says he's my brother now. We're going to live together soon, all of us." The DNA from the bear's stitching was processed through CODIS, the FBI's combined DNA index system. It matched partial samples from 2 cold cases, unidentified remains of children found in Minnesota and New York State in 2014 and 2017, respectively. On October 30th, 2018, Caroline Callaghan was spotted at a playground in Burlington, watching Andrew Frost from a distance. When approached by police, she fled into nearby woods. A 3-day search yielded nothing. It wasn't until December that investigators made the connection to a Jane Doe admitted to a Toronto hospital with hypothermia and frostbite. The woman had been found unconscious in a park, clutching a child's winter hat with the name Andy embroidered inside. By the time Vermont authorities were notified, the woman had recovered enough to leave the hospital against medical advice. Emma Callaghan now lives with her father in Arizona. She no longer speaks of her mother or the special friends Caroline claimed to help. She attends therapy twice weekly and has begun to show signs of recovery from her ordeal. The freezer from the Sycamore Street house remains in evidence storage. Periodically, new tests are run on the bear and its contents as technology advances. The hospital bracelet's scratched-out name has never been fully deciphered. Caroline Callaghan's nursing license has been permanently revoked in all 50 states. Her face appears on law enforcement bulletins across the country and in Canada. The case officially remains open. Last month, a package arrived at the Pinewood Police Department addressed to Detective Mercer. Inside was a child's drawing showing a stick figure family, a woman and 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl. They were standing in what appeared to be snow. Written across the bottom in careful block letters, "We are all cold now." No fingerprints were recovered from the paper or packaging. The postmark was from Seattle, Washington. In the 7 years since the discovery in that basement freezer, 5 more children's hospital bracelets have been found in unusual locations across the country, all with the names scratched out, all from facilities where Caroline Callaghan had once worked as a temporary nurse under various aliases. No other bodies have been found. The stuffed animal from the freezer sits in an evidence locker, its one remaining eye staring blankly at the wall. Sometimes, late at night, the officers on duty swear they can hear the faint sound of a child's laughter coming from behind the locked door. But when they check, there's nothing there, just the bear, wrapped in plastic, perfectly preserved. Crime 3, every handle had been removed. When forced open, the shelves were filled with empty jars, each with a torn label. Most were blank. One still had faint writing, "Screams first batch." In the corner of the cabinet was a single earplug melted into the wood. The discovery was made on April 23, 2019, in the small town of Cedar Grove, Minnesota. Population 5,842. The kind of place where police responded to noise complaints and minor traffic incidents, not homicides, not disappearances, not cases that would eventually reach the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit. Alina Weiss had lived in her modest 2-bedroom home on Sycamore Drive for 27 years. A retired elementary school librarian, she was known for her meticulous garden and the chocolate chip cookies she would bring to town meetings. Alina was 68, a widow for 11 years, mother to 1 son who lived 3 states away. Her neighbors described her as quiet but friendly, someone who would wave from her porch but rarely initiated conversation. She kept to herself, said Martha Donovan, who lived across the street for 15 years, but not in a strange way, just private. She seemed content with her routines. Those routines were predictable. Every Tuesday morning, Alina would visit Anderson's grocery at precisely 9:15 a.m. Every Thursday, she would spend 2 hours at the local library. Sundays were for church, followed by lunch at the Bluebird Diner. She called her son, Thomas, every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. When Thomas didn't receive his weekly call on Wednesday, March 27th, he wasn't immediately concerned. Perhaps his mother had fallen asleep early or her phone battery had died. But when she didn't answer his calls the next morning, uneasiness began to creep in. By Friday, that uneasiness had evolved into panic. He called the Cedar Grove Police Department and requested a welfare check. Officer Daniel Pierce was the first to arrive at Aliner's home. Everything appeared normal from the outside. The morning newspaper sat on the porch, still in its plastic wrapping. The curtains were drawn, as they often were. Aliner's 2012 Toyota Camry was parked in the driveway. I knocked several times, Officer Pierce later testified. When there was no response, I checked the perimeter. The back door was unlocked, which neighbors confirmed was unusual for Ms. Weiss. What Officer Pierce found inside would haunt him for years to come. The house was immaculate, almost unnaturally clean. No dust on any surface, no dishes in the sink. The living room looked staged like a furniture showroom, couch pillows perfectly aligned, magazines fanned out on the coffee table, television remote centered precisely. But Aliner was nowhere to be found. In the kitchen, Officer Pierce noticed something odd. The cabinet doors had no handles. Upon closer inspection, he discovered they had been screwed shut. After retrieving tools from his vehicle, he managed to open one. Inside were the empty jars, meticulously arranged by size, their labels torn and mostly blank except for the one marked Scream's First Batch. I immediately called for backup, Officer Pierce recalled. Something felt very wrong. The house was too perfect, too controlled, and those jars, they indicated premeditation of some kind. Detective Laura Reeves took over the case. With 22 years of experience, she had handled her share of unusual investigations, but Aliner's disappearance struck her differently from the start. The level of organization was disturbing, Detective Reeves noted in her initial report. Every item in that house had been deliberately placed, nothing was accidental, and the cabinets, someone had taken time to remove every handle and screw them shut. This wasn't impulsive, this was calculated. The investigation revealed no signs of forced entry, no blood or evidence of struggle. Aliner's purse, keys, and phone were still in the house. Her medication was in the bathroom cabinet, doses missing up to March 26th, but none after. Her toothbrush was still in its holder. Her bed was made with hospital corners, the sheets pulled so tight you could bounce a quarter off them. The forensics team found minimal fingerprints throughout the house, all belonging to Aliner, almost as if the home had been wiped clean, then Aliner's prints selectively reapplied to common touch points. This theory was dismissed initially as too elaborate, though later events would lend it credibility. 3 days into the investigation, police discovered something even more unsettling. In Aliner's basement, behind a bookshelf that had been bolted to the wall, was a small door. The door led to a crawl space that had been converted into what Detective Reeves could only describe as a monitoring station. Inside were 4 monitors, all connected to cameras hidden throughout Aliner's home. The cameras covered the living room, kitchen, hallway, and front door. A notebook contained handwritten timestamps and brief observations. March 24, 10:17 p.m. Subject reads for 42 minutes before sleep. March 25, 6:05 a.m. Subject follows morning routine precisely. March 26, 3:33 p.m. Subject receives mail, discards all but one envelope. The final entry was dated March 26, 11:42 p.m. collection complete, proceeding to phase 2. The implications were chilling, said FBI agent Cameron Wells, who joined the investigation in late April. Someone had been observing Ms. Weiss, documenting her habits. The question was whether this was done with her knowledge or without, and neither scenario offered much comfort. As investigators dug deeper into Aliner's life, they found nothing to suggest she had enemies. No financial troubles, no romantic entanglements, no history of mental illness. Her son Thomas described her as completely normal in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. But Aliner's computer told a different story. Her search history revealed multiple visits to forums discussing home security and personal safety. She had researched how to install deadbolts and window locks. 3 weeks before her disappearance, she had ordered a book titled Protecting Yourself from Stalkers, a Survivor's Guide. The only potential lead came from Aliner's next-door neighbor, Richard Klein. He recalled seeing an unfamiliar vehicle parked across from Aliner's house on several occasions, a dark sedan with tinted windows. He couldn't provide a license plate number or even a definitive make and model. It would show up late at night and be gone by morning, Klein told detectives. I mentioned it to Aliner once, and she seemed uncomfortable. Said it was probably someone visiting the Hendersons down the street, but the Hendersons moved away months ago. 6 weeks into the investigation, with Aliner still missing, the case took another disturbing turn. Thomas Weiss received a package at his home in Oregon. Inside was a single glass jar, identical to those found in his mother's kitchen cabinets. Attached was a handwritten note. She's safe in my collection. Don't look for more. Forensic analysis of the jar and note yielded no usable fingerprints or DNA. The handwriting didn't match any samples in law enforcement databases. The postal tracking showed the package had been mailed from Minneapolis at a busy post office where security cameras had been malfunctioning that day. Meanwhile, Detective Reeves was developing a theory. She believed Aliner had been targeted by someone methodical, patient, and intimately familiar with her routines. The cameras in Aliner's home suggested long-term surveillance. The jars implied a collector mentality, someone who viewed people as objects to be acquired and preserved. In my experience, Detective Reeves explained during a case review, this level of preparation indicates the perpetrator likely had previous victims. They'd refined their approach over time. A search through similar cases in the Midwest revealed 3 other disappearances with unsettling parallels. All involved older individuals living alone. All disappeared without signs of struggle. In 2 cases, investigators noted unusual organization of the victims' homes after they vanished. One case in Wisconsin 4 years earlier mentioned kitchen cabinets that had been sealed shut with industrial adhesive. None of these cases had been solved. In July 2019, nearly 4 months after Aliner vanished, a maintenance worker at the lakeside storage facility in neighboring Pinewood County made a grim discovery. Unit 237, rented under the name Edward Smith with cash and fake ID, contained a makeshift living space, cot, portable toilet, small refrigerator, and photographs, dozens of them, of Aliner Weiss going about her daily activities, unaware she was being watched. Most disturbing of all was a journal detailing the collection process in clinical, detached language. It described selecting subjects based on routine predictability, installing surveillance, studying habits, and ultimately harvesting them. Aliner's name appeared on page 47, beneath 6 others who had been successfully collected. The journal's final pages contained a list of potential future specimens. complete with addresses and preliminary observations. 3 of the names belonged to residents of Cedar Grove. Despite an intensive investigation involving local police, state resources, and the FBI, Alina Weiss was never found. Neither were any of the other people named in the journal. The storage unit yielded no DNA evidence beyond Alina's hair and a brush. The security cameras at the facility had captured only a figure in a hooded jacket, face always turned away from the lens. 2 years later, Thomas Weiss received another package. This time it contained his mother's wedding ring and another note. She's been released from the collection. Others have taken her place. That same week, 3 new missing persons reports were filed in towns across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. In each case, the missing individual lived alone. In each home, investigators found kitchen cabinets that had been screwed shut. To this day, the case of Alina Weiss and the others remains unsolved. In Cedar Grove, residents now check their cabinets regularly. They install security systems and form neighborhood watch groups. They notice unfamiliar vehicles and report them immediately. And they wonder about the collector, who they are, where they are, and who might be next in their sights. Because somewhere someone is watching, observing, taking notes, preparing for the next collection. Crime 4, side by side, identical in shape and build, but one had no chimney behind it, just solid wall. Inside the false hearth, something had been burned. Ashes were swept to the sides, revealing a melted key and a piece of jawbone with braces still attached. The Mercer family had lived in the modest 2-story colonial on Oakwood Drive for nearly 15 years. James and Linda, both in their mid-40s, were known throughout the neighborhood for their elaborate Christmas decorations and summer barbecues. Their son, Ethan, had just turned 16. He played trumpet in the high school band, maintained decent grades, and mostly kept to himself. The family appeared ordinary in every measurable way. Linda worked part-time at the local library, cataloging new arrivals and organizing community reading events for children. James managed a hardware store downtown, where he'd been employed since before Ethan was born. Residents of Millfield, Pennsylvania would often see James helping elderly customers to their cars, carrying bags of soil or cans of paint, always with a genuine smile. The Mercers attended the Methodist Church on Sundays, volunteered at the annual town fair, and never missed a parent-teacher conference. April 17, 2018 began like any other Tuesday. Linda prepared breakfast while James read the newspaper at the kitchen table. Ethan grabbed a piece of toast before rushing out to catch the school bus. James left for work at 7:40, kissing Linda on the cheek as he always did. Linda planned to meet her friend Susan for coffee at 10:00 before her afternoon shift at the library. Susan arrived at the cafe early and ordered her usual latte. By 10:15, Linda still hadn't shown up. She sent a text, then tried calling. There was no answer. This wasn't like Linda, who was punctual to a fault. Susan finished her coffee and decided to drive by the Mercer home. Linda's car sat in the driveway. The front door was unlocked, which struck Susan as odd. She called out as she entered, but the house was silent. "Linda, are you here? It's Susan." No response came. The house felt unnaturally still. Susan noticed Linda's purse on the kitchen counter, her phone beside it. A half-empty mug of coffee sat on the table, long gone cold. In the living room, the television played on mute, showing a morning talk show that had ended hours ago. Susan tried calling James at the hardware store. He hadn't heard from Linda since leaving for work. Concerned, he asked Susan to check upstairs while he left the store immediately to head home. The master bedroom was undisturbed. The bed was made with hospital corners, the way Linda always did it. In the bathroom, a damp towel hung over the shower rod. Linda's makeup was arranged in perfect rows on the vanity. Nothing seemed amiss, yet everything felt wrong. James arrived 20 minutes later, his face tight with worry. He called the police, who initially suggested Linda might have simply gone for a walk and forgotten her phone. But as the hours passed with no sign of her, a formal missing persons report was filed. Detective Sarah Collins arrived the next morning. With 15 years of experience in the Millfield Police Department, she had handled 3 missing persons cases before, all resolved within days. She saw no reason this one would be different. Did Linda seem troubled recently? Any changes in behavior? Detective Collins asked, her notebook open on her lap. James shook his head. No, nothing like that. Linda, organized, dependable. She'd never just leave. The detective nodded, making notes. What about arguments, financial problems, health issues? Nothing serious, James insisted. We're just normal people. Ethan sat quietly during the interview, his fingers working at a loose thread on his jeans. When asked if his mother had mentioned any plans or concerns, he simply shook his head, eyes downcast. Detective Collins ordered a search of the surrounding area. Neighbors formed groups to comb through the nearby woods and park. Linda's photo appeared on local news stations. Days passed with no leads. 1 week after Linda's disappearance, Detective Collins returned to the Mercer home with a forensic team. They photographed every room, collected fingerprints, bagged items for testing. Standard procedure, she assured James and Ethan. We've been living in this house for 15 years, James said, watching the team work. Our fingerprints are everywhere. We know that, Detective Collins replied gently. We're looking for prints that shouldn't be here. While examining the living room, a young forensic technician named Marcus Dempsey noticed something peculiar about the 2 fireplaces. He took measurements and photographs, then called Detective Collins over. The dimensions don't add up, he explained quietly, showing her his notes. This fireplace connects to the chimney we can see from outside, but this one, he gestured to the identical fireplace beside it. There's no second chimney on the roof, and the wall behind it is too shallow. Collins knocked on the back wall of the second fireplace. The sound was different, hollow in places, solid in others. She ordered the wall opened. Behind the false fireplace was a small, concealed space, just large enough for a person to stand in. The inside walls were lined with acoustic foam. On the floor lay a folded blanket, a bottle of water, and a flashlight. And scattered among the ashes in the hearth were several burned items, photographs, papers, a melted plastic key, and most disturbing of all, a fragment of jawbone with metal braces still attached. James appeared genuinely shocked. I don't understand. We've never used that fireplace. I thought both were decorative. The house came with them. Detective Collins studied his face carefully. Mr. Mercer, do you know who owned this house before you? He thought for a moment. An elderly couple, the Harrisons. They moved to Florida. The house had been on the market for almost a year before we bought it. Records showed the Harrisons had indeed owned the house from 1985 to 2003, when the Mercers purchased it. Before that, from 1973 to 1985, it belonged to the Taylor family, a couple with 2 teenage daughters. One of those daughters, Melissa Taylor, had disappeared in 1984 at age 16. Her case was never solved. The forensic analysis confirmed the worst. The The jawbone fragment found in the false fireplace belonged to a teenage girl. Dental records matched it to Melissa Taylor, who had been wearing braces when she vanished 34 years earlier. The investigation suddenly expanded beyond Linda Mercer's disappearance. Police began excavating the backyard. Ground-penetrating radar revealed disturbed soil in several locations. 3 days into the excavation, they found human remains buried beneath an old garden shed. The remains were not Linda's. They belonged to a young woman who had gone missing in 1982, 2 years before Melissa Taylor. She had no connection to the Taylor family that anyone could establish. As the investigation deepened, Detective Collins learned that Robert Taylor, Melissa's father, had been briefly investigated after his daughter's disappearance. A neighbor had reported hearing screams the night Melissa vanished, but with no evidence of foul play, the investigation had stalled. Robert and his wife sold the house less than a year later and moved out of state. Both had since passed away. Meanwhile, Linda Mercer remained missing. James and Ethan continued to live in the house despite the ongoing forensic work. James insisted they had nowhere else to go, and he wanted to be home in case Linda returned. "Do you think these old cases are connected to my wife?" James asked Detective Collins one evening, his voice hollow with exhaustion. "I don't know," she answered honestly, "but we need to explore every possibility." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Susan, Linda's friend, brought Detective Collins a box of old library records. Linda was researching the history of houses in Millfield, she explained. She mentioned finding something strange about her own home's past. Among Linda's notes were photocopies of newspaper clippings about Melissa Taylor's disappearance and interviews with the Harrison couple who had bought the house afterward. One passage was highlighted. Mrs. Harrison insisted they never use the east fireplace due to bad energy she felt near it. The next day, police brought cadaver dogs to search the Mercer property again. One dog showed interest in a specific section of the basement wall. When opened, they found a crawl space containing Linda's purse and a notebook. The notebook detailed her discovery of the house's history and her growing suspicion that someone had been entering the hidden space behind the fireplace at night. The final entry read, "I hear movement behind the wall sometimes. James thinks I'm imagining things. Maybe I am, but tonight I'm going to wait and see." That was the day she disappeared. As Detective Collins left the basement, she found Ethan standing alone in the kitchen, staring out the window. "My dad isn't who you think he is," he said quietly, without turning around. When questioned separately, Ethan revealed that his father had been obsessed with the house's history since before they bought it. He had boxes of research about the Taylor family hidden in the attic. James had insisted on buying this specific house, even though it was outside their price range at the time. "Sometimes he goes into that space at night," Ethan whispered. "I've seen him. He thinks I'm asleep." A search warrant for James Mercer's workplace uncovered a hidden compartment in his office containing items belonging to both Melissa Taylor and the unidentified woman found in the yard. His DNA matched evidence recovered from both sets of remains. But Linda's location remained unknown. James Mercer was arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder, but he refused to reveal what had happened to his wife. The case has haunted Detective Collins ever since. Sometimes in the quiet hours before dawn, she returns to the house on Oakwood Drive, now empty and overgrown. She stands in the living room, staring at the two identical fireplaces, wondering what secrets still remained buried within those walls. And sometimes neighbors report seeing lights moving inside the abandoned house at night, as if someone is still searching for answers that may never come to light. Linda Mercer has never been found. Crime 5, pinned upside down, souls out. None were paired. Each had something tucked inside, a photo, a lock of hair, a crayon, a marble. When pulled down, they released a scent like burnt rubber and sugar. On the back of one soul, scratched in ink, she walked me here. Detective Marissa Colby stood in the center of the room, her notebook open but untouched. This was her 4th year with the Millbrook Police Department, but she'd never seen anything like this before. The abandoned house on Wharton Street had stood empty for nearly a decade, or so everyone had thought. Millbrook was the kind of town where people knew their neighbors. With just under 15,000 residents in northern Vermont, it was small enough that strangers were noticed, yet large enough that people still kept to themselves. Alina Reed had lived there all her life. At 67, she was known for her volunteer work at the local library's children's section. Her husband had passed away from cancer 15 years earlier, and their only daughter, Charlotte, had moved to Seattle after college. Alina lived alone in a tidy colonial on Maple Drive, 3 blocks from the abandoned house. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Alina would walk to the library at precisely 9:15 a.m. She would arrange books, lead story time at 10:30, and then walk home at 12:45, stopping at Brennan's grocery for exactly 3 items, never more, never less. Her routine was as predictable as the changing of seasons. On October 17, 2023, Alina didn't arrive at the library. Meredith Chen, the head librarian, called Alina's house at 9:45. No answer. By 10:30, with a room full of waiting children, Meredith called Charlotte in Seattle. "Mom never misses story time," Charlotte told Detective Colby later. It was the highlight of her week. Even when she had the flu last winter, she called Meredith first thing to apologize. Officers found Alina's house undisturbed. Her bed was made. A half-empty cup of chamomile tea sat on her nightstand. A light film formed on its surface. Her reading glasses were folded neatly beside a dog-eared copy of The Secret Garden. Her purse was on the hook by the door, keys inside. Her coat was gone. For 3 days, search parties combed the woods surrounding Millbrook. They dragged the small lake at the edge of town. They checked hospital records in neighboring counties. Alina Reed had simply vanished. On day 4, a call came into the station. A real estate agent was preparing to show the abandoned Wharton Street house, which had finally found a potential buyer after years on the market, when she discovered something unusual in the attic. Detective Colby was the first on the scene. The attic room was small, about 12 by 15 feet, with a sloped ceiling and a single dormer window facing east. What made it remarkable was the collection of children's shoes, 37 in all, pinned to the ceiling. They ranged in size from toddler to early teen. Some looked decades old, others relatively new. Each contained a small trinket or memento. In the center of the room stood a rocking chair. Beside it, a small table held a notebook, open to a page filled with Alina Reed's distinctive handwriting. The entry was dated October 16, the day before she disappeared. "I heard her again last night, the same sound like small feet on hardwood. Charlotte used to make that sound when she would sneak down for cookies after bedtime, but Charlotte is 42 now and 2,000 miles away. I know what they'll say if I tell them. They'll say I'm getting confused, that I'm hearing things, but I'm not confused. I know what I heard, and I know what I have to do." The following pages were filled with names, children's names. Beside each was a date and location. Some of the dates went back 30 years. Most of the locations were parks, schools, or playgrounds within 50 miles of Millbrook. "We found no evidence of a leaner in the house," Detective Colby told the local newspaper weeks later. "No fingerprints except on the notebook, no DNA samples, nothing to indicate she'd been there except her handwriting." As investigators cross-referenced the names in the notebook with missing persons databases, a disturbing pattern emerged. 17 of the names matched children who had gone missing between 1992 and 2020. None of the cases had been solved. None of the children had been found. The shoes were catalogued and examined. Each trinket, the photo, the lock of hair, the crayon, the marble, was bagged as evidence. Forensic analysis revealed traces of DNA that matched 5 of the missing children. Charlotte flew in from Seattle and stayed at her mother's house during the investigation. She agreed to be interviewed multiple times, each session revealing another layer of complexity to Alina's life. "Mom started volunteering at the library after Dad died," Charlotte explained during her third interview. "She said it gave her purpose, but there was something else. She'd always been interested in local history, especially unsolved mysteries. She kept files, newspaper clippings, notes. I found them in the basement after she disappeared." Those files contained detailed information about each of the missing children. Newspaper articles, school photos, maps with locations marked, and notes, pages of notes in Alina's handwriting, documenting her own independent investigation into these disappearances. "I think Mom was trying to solve these cases," Charlotte said. "She never mentioned it to me, never said a word, but these files go back decades." As winter settled over Millbrook, the investigation took another turn. A former colleague of Alina's from the town historical society came forward with an envelope Alina had given her just in case something happened. Inside was a key and a letter. "If you're reading this," the letter began, "then I've gotten too close. The shoes are the key. Each one walked a child away. I've been tracking the pattern for years. It's not random. It's never been random. The house on Wharton belonged to him once, Martin Brewster. Check the foundation. Look for the door that shouldn't be there." Martin Brewster was not a name familiar to Detective Colby or anyone else on the force. Town records showed he had briefly owned the Wharton Street house from 1989 to 1991 before disappearing himself. His photograph from driver's license records showed an unremarkable man in his 40s with thinning hair and glasses. The basement of the Wharton Street house had been thoroughly searched days earlier, but Colby returned with a team and ground-penetrating radar. Behind a section of stone foundation that appeared slightly newer than the rest, they found a small door sealed shut with concrete that had been painted to match the surrounding stone. Breaking through revealed a crawl space. Inside, wrapped in plastic, were Alina Reed's coat and shoes. No other trace of Alina was found. No body, no blood evidence. Nothing to indicate what had happened to her except those 2 items, carefully preserved as if waiting to be discovered. The investigation expanded to look for any trace of Martin Brewster. Records indicated he had worked as a school janitor in 3 different districts across Vermont and New Hampshire between 1975 and 1989. Each district had reported at least 1 child disappearance during his employment. 6 months after Alina's disappearance, Charlotte received a postcard from Taos, New Mexico. It bore no message, only a drawing of a single child's shoe with what appeared to be a marble inside. The handwriting on the address matched Alina's. Detective Colby flew to Taos the next day. Local police had no record of Alina Reed. No one matching her description had been seen. The postcard had been dropped in a public mailbox with no cameras nearby. The case remains open. The shoes from the ceiling are stored in evidence lockers at the Millbrook Police Department. The notebook with its list of names sits in Detective Colby's desk drawer. Sometimes, late at night when the station is quiet, she swears she can hear the faint sound of a rocking chair creaking from the evidence room. Alina Reed's name has been added to the missing persons database. Martin Brewster remains a ghost, a name without a trail. And in Millbrook, parents hold their children's hands a little tighter when they walk past the house on Wharton Street. The ceiling was covered in children's shoes, and somewhere perhaps a new ceiling is being decorated, one pinned shoe at a time. Crime 6, big, heavy, ugly, but unnaturally secured. When they pried it loose, they found a square hatch beneath. Inside, a shallow pit filled with bones too small to be adult. At the very bottom, someone had carved a smiley face with a single word underneath: hide. Oak Ridge, Nebraska had always been the kind of town where people left their doors unlocked. A place where the local diner knew everyone's usual order, and the high school football games were community events that emptied the streets every Friday night in fall. It was here that Alina and Marcus Winters raised their 2 children in a modest 2-story home on Sycamore Lane, becoming fixtures in the community over their 15 years of residence. Marcus worked as an electrical engineer at the regional power company, while Alina ran a small but successful daycare from their finished basement. Ellie's little angels had cared for dozens of Oak Ridge children over the years. Parents trusted Alina implicitly. Her warm smile and patient demeanor made her the perfect caretaker for their precious little ones. The Winters' own children, Sophia and Lucas, were well-adjusted teenagers now. Sophia, 17, was college-bound with dreams of becoming a veterinarian. Lucas, 14, was quieter but excelled in mathematics and computer science. The family appeared, to all who knew them, to be the embodiment of suburban contentment. That perception began to shift on April 12, 2019, when Alina called the local police to report something troubling. 3-year-old Lily Hammond, one of her daycare children, hadn't been picked up by her mother, Jessica. This was unusual. Jessica was always punctual, often arriving early to hear about Lily's day. Alina had called Jessica's cell phone multiple times with no answer. When 6 o'clock came and went, Alina's concern transformed into genuine worry. Officer Daniel Reed responded to the call. He took detailed notes as Alina explained that Jessica was a single mother who lived in an apartment complex about 10 minutes away. She worked as a nurse at Oak Ridge Memorial Hospital and was never late, not once, in the 14 months Lily had been attending the daycare. When Officer Reed arrived at Jessica's apartment, the curtains were drawn and no lights were visible from outside. He knocked repeatedly, announcing himself as law enforcement. Only silence answered. After obtaining permission from the building manager, Reed entered the apartment. Inside, everything was in perfect order, too perfect, perhaps. The kitchen counter gleamed, dishes were put away. The bathroom towels were folded with military precision. Jessica's bed was made with hospital corners, but there was no sign of Jessica herself, and her car was not in the designated parking spot. What Officer Reed found particularly unsettling was the state of Lily's room. The bed was made, toys arranged neatly on shelves, but the closet stood empty. When he checked the dresser drawers, he found them vacant as well. It appeared that while Jessica's belongings remained untouched, all of Lily's clothes had been removed. Initial theories were straightforward. Perhaps Jessica had decided to leave town suddenly to escape debt, or an abusive ex-partner, or simply to start fresh somewhere new. But her friends and coworkers painted a different picture. Jessica had worked her usual shift the previous day. She had lunch plans with a colleague for the coming weekend. Her supervisor confirmed that her last paycheck remained uncashed. Nothing in her behavior suggested someone planning to disappear. 3 days after Jessica and Lily's disappearance, investigators made their first significant discovery. Jessica's car was found in the long-term parking lot at Omaha's Epley Airfield, about 2 hours from Oak Ridge. Security footage showed a woman matching Jessica's description parking the car at 11:42 p.m. on April 11th. She carried a large suitcase and held the hand of a small child. Further investigation revealed that 2 one-way tickets to Phoenix had been purchased in the names of Jessica and Lily Hammond. They had boarded the 1:15 a.m. flight on April 12th. This seemed to confirm the theory that Jessica had planned to leave, but questions remained. Why hadn't she notified her employer? Why abandon her apartment full of belongings? And why Phoenix, where she apparently had no connections? The case might have faded into the background, classified as a voluntary disappearance, if not for what happened next. 2 weeks after Jessica and Lily vanished, Alina Winters reported another disturbing incident. Someone had broken into the daycare space in her basement. Nothing was stolen, but Alina noticed that several toys had been moved, and a child's drawing was missing from the wall a crayon picture Lily had made of herself and her mother. Police found no signs of forced entry. The only unusual detail was a small handprint on the basement window, too high for a child to reach from outside. Detective Sarah Kaplan, who had taken over the case, speculated that someone had lifted a child up to the window, perhaps to look inside. The Winters family began to feel uneasy in their own home. Marcus installed a security system with cameras monitoring all entrances. Alina temporarily closed the daycare, telling parents she needed time to recover from the stress of Jessica and Lily's disappearance. The other families understood the incident had unsettled the entire community. 1 month after the disappearance, Detective Kaplan received a call from Phoenix police. A woman matching Jessica's description had been found wandering disoriented in a shopping mall. She had no identification and appeared confused when questioned. When shown a photograph of Lily, she became agitated, repeating, "I had to leave her there. I had to leave her there." The woman was positively identified as Jessica Hammond, but her mental state made interrogation difficult. She was admitted to a psychiatric facility, diagnosed with acute stress reaction and possible dissociative amnesia. For days, she would only repeat cryptic phrases. "The basement isn't right. They'll find her if I tell," and most disturbingly, "The couch hides everything." Meanwhile, in Oak Ridge, attention turned more intensely toward the Winters' home and Alina's daycare. Parents of other children who had attended Ellie's Little Angels were interviewed extensively. Most had only positive things to say, though several mentioned that their children had occasionally come home with unexplained bruises or scratches. Alina had always attributed these to normal playground roughhousing. On June 3rd, almost 2 months after the disappearance, Detective Kaplan obtained a warrant to conduct a more thorough search of the Winters' basement. The daycare space appeared normal, bright colors, educational toys, child-sized furniture. A large, heavy couch sat against the far wall, its drab brown upholstery contrasting with the cheerful surroundings. What caught the detective's attention was how the couch was positioned. Unlike the other furniture, which could be moved for cleaning, this couch was immobile. When officers tried to shift it, they discovered why. The couch had been nailed to the floor. Big, heavy, ugly, but unnaturally secured. When they pried it loose, they found a square hatch beneath. Inside, a shallow pit filled with bones too small to be adult. At the very bottom, someone had carved a smiley face with a single word underneath: hide. Forensic analysis would later confirm that the remains belonged to 3 different children, ranging in age from 2 to 4 years old. The oldest remains dated back 7 years. None of them belonged to Lily Hammond. The Winters family was immediately taken in for questioning. Alina maintained her innocence, appearing genuinely horrified by the discovery. Marcus claimed complete ignorance, noting that he rarely went into the basement since it was Alina's domain. Their children, Sophia and Lucas, seemed equally shocked. Jessica Hammond, upon being informed of the discovery, experienced an emotional breakthrough. She revealed that 2 days before her disappearance, she had arrived early to pick up Lily and had glimpsed something troubling through the basement window, Alina kneeling by the couch, prying up what appeared to be a loose floorboard. When Jessica mentioned this casually the next day, she noticed Alina's expression change momentarily before she composed herself and laughed it off as just checking for termites. That night, Jessica received an anonymous phone call. A distorted voice told her that Lily was in danger, that other children had disappeared from Ellie's care over the years, and that she needed to take her daughter and run immediately. The caller provided specific instructions: go to Omaha, fly to Phoenix, abandon all identification, and wait for further contact. Jessica, terrified for her daughter's safety, complied. But Lily never made it to Phoenix. At the Omaha airport, while Jessica was distracted at the ticket counter, a woman approached Lily, whispered something in her ear, and led her away. By the time Jessica turned around, her daughter was gone. Security footage showed a woman in a hooded jacket leaving with a child matching Lily's description through a service exit and area with no cameras. The case took another turn when forensic evidence from the basement pit yielded unexpected results. DNA analysis of the remains did not match any children reported missing in the area. More puzzling still, one set of remains shared genetic markers with Alina Winters herself. When confronted with this information, Alina broke down. Through tears, she revealed a history no one in Oak Ridge had known. Before moving to Nebraska, she had given birth to a child with severe congenital abnormalities. The baby, a girl named Clara, had lived only 6 months. The loss had devastated Alina, triggering a severe psychotic break that required hospitalization. After her release, Alina and Marcus had moved to Oak Ridge for a fresh start. Opening the daycare had been therapeutic for Alina, a way to fill the void left by Clara's death. But according to medical experts brought in to evaluate her, Alina's unresolved grief had manifested in a complex delusion. She had come to believe that certain children in her care were actually reincarnations of Clara, sent back but corrupted by dark forces. These children, the ones whose remains were found beneath the couch, had not been reported missing because they had never existed in Oak Ridge's public records. Alina had created elaborate fictional identities for them, falsified paperwork, and even manufactured evidence of their existence through doctored photographs and forged documents. But Lily Hammond was real, a living child whose mother had inadvertently discovered Alina's secret, and now Lily was missing. Despite extensive searches and a nationwide alert, Lily Hammond was never found. Jessica eventually took her own life, leaving behind a journal filled with increasingly paranoid writings about a network of people who collected special children. Marcus and the Winters children were cleared of involvement, though the family dissolved in the aftermath. Marcus moved away, changing his name. Sophia deferred college and disappeared from public life. Lucas was placed in foster care, where caretakers noted his withdrawn behavior and fascination with hidden spaces. The house on Sycamore Lane remained vacant, its basement sealed by police order. Occasionally, neighbors reported seeing lights in the windows at night, though the electricity had long been disconnected. Others claimed to hear children's laughter coming from the empty building during summer evenings. Alina Winters was declared mentally unfit to stand trial and committed to a secure psychiatric facility. During her rare lucid moments, she would only say that Lily was safe now and with the others. When asked where, she would smile serenely and whisper, "They're all hiding. That's the game, hide and seek, but no one's seeking anymore." To this day, the case of the Winters daycare remains partially unsolved. The identities of the 3 children found beneath the couch were never established. Lily Hammond's whereabouts remain unknown. And in the quiet town of Oak Ridge, Nebraska, parents now always check under their children's beds before saying goodnight, not for monsters, but for hatches leading to places where children go to hide and are never found. The couch, that big, heavy, ugly piece of furniture, was eventually incinerated by order of the district attorney. But sometimes, the officers who worked the case wake in the night, haunted by the crude, smiley face and its single-word command that seemed to mock their failure. "Hide." Crime 7, thin, frantic lines ran down the wood from eye level to floor, all heading outward, as if someone tried to claw their way out. In the gap between frame and wall, they found a child's bracelet with the name Eva scratched out and replaced with it. The small town of Pine Haven, Massachusetts, had always been unremarkable. Nestled between rolling hills and dense pine forests, it was the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's coffee preferences, and the local diner served the same specials every Thursday. A place where doors remained unlocked at night until February 2023, when 8-year-old Eva Calloway vanished from her bedroom. Eva was a quiet child with large, thoughtful eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. Her mother, Diane, often said that Eva was an old soul, born understanding things that most adults never grasp. She collected smooth stones from the creek behind their house, arranging them in intricate patterns on her windowsill. Her second-grade teacher described her as unusually perceptive, noting how Eva would sometimes stop mid-sentence, tilt her head slightly, as if listening to something no one else could hear. The Calloways lived in a 2-story colonial at the end of Maple Street. Robert Calloway worked remotely as a software developer, while Diane managed the local library. Their neighbors described them as private but friendly, a normal family leading a normal life. Until they weren't. February 18th began like any other Saturday. Diane made pancakes shaped like hearts, a weekend tradition. Robert took their dog, Baxter, for a morning walk along the forest trail. Eva sat at the kitchen table, methodically coloring a drawing of what appeared to be a door with strange markings around it. When Diane asked about the drawing, Eva simply responded, "It's coming soon." At 8:30 p.m. that evening, Diane tucked Eva into bed. The child insisted on keeping her desk lamp on, something she had started doing over the past 3 weeks. "The shadows move when it's dark," she had explained with the matter-of-fact tone children use when stating obvious truths. Diane kissed her forehead and left the door slightly ajar, as always. At 3:17 a.m., Robert awoke to Baxter's low, persistent growling. The dog stood rigid at their bedroom door, hackles raised, staring down the hallway toward Eva's room. Robert would later tell investigators that the air felt wrong, heavier, colder than it should have been. He approached Eva's room, noticing immediately that her door was now completely closed. He never closed her door. No one did. When he turned the knob, he found resistance. Something was blocking the door from the inside. It took 3 forceful pushes before it gave way enough for him to squeeze through. The desk lamp was still on, casting long shadows across empty walls that had just hours before been covered with Eva's drawings. Her bed was perfectly made, as if no one had slept in it. The room was cold, much colder than the rest of the house, and Eva was gone. The window remained locked from the inside. Nothing in the house appeared disturbed. No alarms had triggered. The security camera at the front door showed no movement all night. It was as if Eva had simply dissolved into the air. Detective Morgan Hayes arrived at 4:45 a.m. A 20-year veteran with salt and pepper hair and eyes that had seen too much, Hayes approached each case with methodical precision. But something about the Calloway home made the hairs on his neck stand up. Perhaps it was the perfect stillness of Eva's room. Perhaps it was the way Diane kept repeating. She said it was coming soon. She knew. It was Hayes who first noticed the scratches on the inside of Eva's door frame, thin, desperate lines carved into the wood, running downward. As if someone small had been dragged upward, fingernails scraping frantically as they went. And wedged in the narrow space between the door frame and wall, a child's friendship bracelet. Colorful beads spelled EVA, but someone had scratched out the name and carved IT into the central wooden bead. The investigation expanded outward from the Calloway home like ripples in still water. Neighbors were interviewed. The surrounding woods were combed by search parties. Eva's school records were examined, her friends questioned. Hayes learned that in the weeks before her disappearance, Eva had become increasingly withdrawn. Her teacher noted that she had started drawing the same image repeatedly, a door with strange symbols around it. 3 weeks before she vanished, Eva had a playdate with her best friend, Lily Chen. According to Lily's mother, the girls had spent the afternoon playing in Eva's room. Around 4 p.m., she heard the girls arguing, something unusual for the typically harmonious pair. When she checked on them, Eva was sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, rocking slightly. Lily was tugging at her arm, saying, "Stop it, Eva, you're scaring me." When questioned, Lily reluctantly told Hayes that Eva had been talking to the door. "She said there was someone on the other side," Lily whispered. "Someone who knew her name and wanted to play, but I couldn't hear anything." As days stretched into weeks, the investigation yielded more questions than answers. Hayes discovered that 5 other children had disappeared from neighboring counties over the past 50 years, all between the ages of 7 and 9, all from their bedrooms, all with no signs of forced entry. In 2 of those cases, parents reported finding scratches on door frames. In Eva's room, forensic analysis revealed something disturbing. The scratches contained trace amounts of both wood and human tissue. The DNA matched Eva's, but the angle of the marks contradicted normal physics. They appeared to have been made by someone being pulled upward, not someone trying to escape outward, as Hayes had initially thought. A neighbor across the street, elderly Mrs. Patterson, finally came forward with something she had initially dismissed. Her insomnia often kept her at her window in the early morning hours. At approximately 3:15 a.m. on February 19th, she saw a brief flash of light from Eva's window, not like a flashlight, she clarified, more like when sunlight hits a mirror just for a second, then nothing. 43 days after Eva's disappearance, Diane Calloway woke to find a small, smooth stone on her nightstand, the kind Eva collected from the creek. Upon closer inspection, it had a tiny symbol etched into its surface, matching one of the markings from Eva's drawings. The house had remained under police surveillance, doors and windows secured with additional locks. No one could explain how the stone had appeared. The Calloways began finding more stones, in Eva's empty shoe by the door, inside a sealed cereal box under Robert's pillow. Each bore a different symbol. When arranged in the pattern Eva had used on her windowsill, they formed what linguistics professor Dr. Alina West identified as an ancient pictographic message. Her rough translation: the door opens both ways. 6 months after Eva vanished, the Callaways moved away, unable to bear the constant reminders of their loss. The house remained empty for nearly a year before a young couple, the Mercers, purchased it at a significantly reduced price. 3 weeks after moving in, they reported hearing scratching sounds inside the walls at night. In the room that had been Eva's, they found the door difficult to open some mornings, as if something was pressing against it from the inside. Their queries about the home's history led them to Detective Hayes, now retired. Hayes visited the house one last time. Standing in Eva's former room, he noticed something he had somehow missed in his initial investigation: a small door about 2 feet high, built into the wall behind where Eva's bed had stood. It appeared to be an access panel to the building's infrastructure, common in older homes, but the Mercers swore it hadn't been there when they moved in. The door was sealed shut, its edges seemingly melded with the surrounding wall. Yet as Hayes pressed his ear against it, he could swear he heard a child's soft humming coming from the other side, and the gentle clicking of small stones being arranged in patterns. The case of Eva Callaway remains officially unsolved. The scratches on the door frame have deepened over time, though no one admits to touching them. And sometimes, on particularly quiet nights, neighbors report seeing a brief flash of light from the window of the empty room, not like a flashlight, they say, more like when sunlight hits a mirror, just for a second. Then nothing. Crime 8, same shape, same frame, same angle, but in the mirror the room had peeling wallpaper and no furniture. A figure stood in the far corner, too tall, neck tilted, hands clasped. They turned around, nothing. When they looked back into the mirror, it was closer. The small town of Millfield, Connecticut, had always been unremarkable. Built around a paper mill that closed in the late 80s, it was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, but not many knew it existed beyond the county line. In this forgotten pocket of New England lived Alina Madsen, a quiet woman of 32 who worked as a librarian at the local branch. She lived alone in a modest 2-bedroom home on Spruce Street, a little yellow house with white trim that her parents had left her when they retired to Florida 5 years ago. Alina was known for her reliability. She arrived at the library at 8:45 each morning, opened the doors at 9:00 sharp, and left at 5:30 after ensuring every book was in its proper place. Her colleagues described her as pleasant but private. She rarely joined them for after-work drinks or weekend barbecues, preferring instead the company of her books and her cat, a gray tabby named Fitzgerald. On Monday, October 12, 2023, Alina did not arrive at work. By 9:15, her coworker Diane Wilkins had tried calling her 3 times. By 9:45, she had called Alina's neighbor, Martin Grayson, a retired high school teacher who occasionally checked in on Alina. Martin agreed to walk over and see if everything was all right. Her car was in the driveway, Martin later told Detective James Holloway. All the curtains were drawn. I knocked for maybe 5 minutes, but no one came to the door. I was worried she might have fallen or gotten sick, so I used the spare key she'd given me for emergencies. What Martin found inside would haunt him for months to come. The house was immaculate as always. Alina was meticulous about cleanliness, but she was nowhere to be found. Her bed was made with no sign it had been slept in. Fitzgerald's food bowl was full. Her phone sat on the kitchen counter beside a half-empty cup of tea. The front door had been locked from the inside, and the back door remained bolted with the security chain in place. The only thing out of the ordinary was the antique floor-length mirror in Eleanor's bedroom. It had been covered with a white sheet, secured with packing tape around its ornate wooden frame. "I never saw that mirror covered before," Martin told the detective. "Eleanor loved that thing, said it was a family heirloom from her grandmother's house in Providence." Detective Holloway, a 20-year veteran of the Millfield Police Department, arrived at the scene by 10:30 that morning. In his career, he had dealt with 3 murders, dozens of break-ins, and the occasional missing person, usually teenagers who returned within a day or two. But Eleanor's case immediately struck him as unusual. It was like she had vanished into thin air, Holloway later wrote in his case notes. No signs of struggle, no indication she planned to leave. Her purse was still there with her wallet, ID, and credit cards. Her car keys were on the hook by the door. The investigation began with standard procedures. Officers canvassed the neighborhood. They checked Eleanor's phone records and bank statements. They interviewed her colleagues and the few friends they could identify. No one had seen or heard from Eleanor since Saturday afternoon when she had visited the local grocery store. Security footage showed her calmly selecting produce, paying with her debit card, and leaving with 2 small bags. She looked completely normal, smiling at the cashier, checking her shopping list, adjusting her scarf against the autumn chill. 2 days into the investigation, Diane Wilkins provided a potentially crucial piece of information. The week before her disappearance, Eleanor had seemed distracted at work. Twice, Diane had caught her staring into space, an uncharacteristic behavior for someone so focused. She kept talking about dreams, Diane recalled. She said she was having the same dream night after night, something about her bedroom looking different in her dreams. The wallpaper was wrong, she said, and she mentioned seeing someone in the corner of the room. I thought she was just tired. Eleanor's journal, found in her bedside drawer, contained entries that grew increasingly disturbing in the weeks before she vanished. The earliest concerning entry, dated September 20th, read, "Had that dream again. The room looks like my room, but it isn't. The wallpaper is green with vertical stripes peeling in the corners. My room has blue walls. I painted them myself last spring. In the dream, there's no furniture except the mirror, and someone's always standing in the corner watching me. I can never see their face." On October 1st, she wrote, "I'm afraid to sleep now, 3 nights in a row. The figure is getting closer each time. Last night I could hear it breathing. When I woke up, my mirror looked cloudy like someone had breathed on it, but that's impossible. I live alone." Her final entry, dated October 11th, the day before she disappeared, was just 1 line. "It's not just in my dreams anymore." The investigation took a strange turn when forensics examined Eleanor's bedroom. Under ultraviolet light, they found handprints on the mirror, handprints that didn't match Eleanor's. Even more puzzling, the prints appeared to be pressing outward from the inside of the glass. "We considered the possibility that someone had broken in," Detective Holloway explained, "but there was no sign of forced entry. All windows were locked from the inside, the security system showed no activity, and the handprints, they just didn't make sense." As days turned into weeks, the case grew cold. Eleanor's sister, Catherine, flew in from Seattle, hoping to find answers. She stayed in Eleanor's house, despite concerns from Detective Holloway. "That mirror used to hang in our grandmother's house," Catherine told investigators. "Eleanor loved it, but I always hated it. As kids, we used to dare each other to stand in front of it in the dark. Eleanor could do it for minutes. I couldn't last 10 seconds. It always felt like the reflection wasn't quite right. like there was a delay or something was different in the mirror world. 3 weeks after Alina's disappearance, Catherine made a disturbing discovery. While cleaning her sister's closet, she found a small box containing old photographs. Most were familiar family snapshots, but one caught her attention, a black and white photo of what appeared to be the same mirror in what looked like an old Victorian home. Written on the back in faded ink, "Amelia's mirror, 1923. Remove it after what happened." Catherine couldn't find any family member named Amelia in their genealogy. When she showed the photo to their mother in Florida, she became agitated and refused to discuss it, saying only that the mirror should have been destroyed years ago. Meanwhile, Detective Holloway continued pursuing conventional leads. He discovered that Alina had recently researched the history of her house, making multiple visits to the county records office. The librarian there remembered Alina asking specifically about previous owners and any deaths that had occurred in the home. The detective's search revealed that Alina's house had been built in 1912. The original owner was a Dr. William Porter, who lived there with his wife and daughter until 1924, when tragedy struck. According to newspaper archives, the doctor's 16-year-old daughter, Amelia Porter, vanished from her bedroom one night. Despite an extensive search, she was never found. Dr. Porter maintained until his death that something had taken his daughter. His wife committed suicide 6 months after the disappearance. The case grew increasingly complicated when Martin Grayson reported something strange. He had been checking on Alina's cat while Catherine was out dealing with her sister's affairs. "I went in yesterday evening to feed Fitzgerald," he told Detective Holloway, his voice shaking. "I heard something from Alina's bedroom, like someone walking. The floor creaked. I called out, thinking Catherine might have returned early. When no one answered, I looked in the bedroom. The sheet had fallen from the mirror. And for just a second, I swear this on my life, I saw Alina in the reflection. But when I turned around, the room was empty." Detective Holloway, though skeptical, decided to set up surveillance cameras in Alina's house with Catherine's permission. For 3 days, nothing unusual appeared on the footage. On the fourth night at precisely 3:17 a.m., the camera in the bedroom captured something that would later become the subject of heated debate among investigators. The sheet covering the mirror suddenly fell to the floor, though there was no apparent draft or movement to cause this. For approximately 40 seconds, the mirror's surface appeared to ripple like water disturbed by a stone. Then, just for a fraction of a second, a hand seemed to press against the glass from the inside, a woman's hand with a small birthmark between the thumb and index finger. Alina had the same birthmark. The footage ended abruptly as the camera's power failed. When officers arrived at the house the next morning, they found the mirror had shattered. Among the broken glass on the floor was a small silver bracelet, the same one Alina had been wearing in the grocery store security footage from the day before she disappeared. The case of Alina Madsen remains officially open, classified as a missing person. Detective Holloway, now retired, still keeps a file of notes on his desk at home. Catherine had the broken mirror removed and destroyed, against the protests of investigators who wanted to examine it further. In the years since, 3 more reports have emerged from families living in similar historic homes in the Northeast, all describing mirrors with unusual properties, strange dreams, and unexplained reflections. None have resulted in disappearances. As for Alina, some in Millfield believe she simply left town, staging an elaborate disappearance to escape a life that had perhaps grown too predictable. Others whisper about more fantastic theories. Detective Holloway offers no speculation, stating only the facts as he knows them. The yellow house on Spruce Street remains vacant. Occasionally, prospective buyers tour the property, attracted by the price, which has dropped considerably since Aliner's case made local news. But no one stays long. Neighbors say the house feels wrong somehow, like someone is watching from empty rooms. And in the county evidence locker, sealed in a plastic bag, a silver bracelet sits alongside a faded photograph of a mirror that once belonged to a girl named Amelia, who also vanished without a trace nearly a century earlier from the very same house. Crime 9, soaked but not dripping, the fabric was cold and smelled like chlorine. Each blanket was folded neatly. Between them were baby bottles, empty pill containers, and a yellowed photo of an infant swaddled in the same fabric. The writing on the back said only, "Again." Detective Sarah Leon stood in the doorway of the walk-in closet, her breathing shallow. The air felt heavy, saturated with something beyond moisture. The house on Maple Avenue had seemed so ordinary from the outside, white siding, blue shutters, a tire swing hanging from the oak tree in the front yard. But ordinary houses often held the deepest secrets. Aliner Matthews had lived in this 3-bedroom colonial for 27 years. A retired elementary school teacher, she was known in the neighborhood for her immaculate garden and her chocolate chip cookies, which she would distribute to neighborhood children every Sunday after church. Aliner was 63, never married, with no children of her own. Or so everyone thought. The call had come in on a Tuesday morning. Aliner's sister, Patricia, had been trying to reach her for 3 days. Aliner always called on Sundays, a ritual they had maintained for decades. When the calls went unanswered, Patricia contacted the local police department in Hartsdale, Connecticut. Officer Jensen arrived to perform a wellness check. He knocked, no answer. The front door was unlocked. Inside, he found the house pristine, as if waiting for a real estate showing. The refrigerator contained fresh groceries. The mail had been collected from the box, but Aliner was nowhere to be found. It wasn't until Jensen noticed the slightly ajar door at the end of the upstairs hallway that he felt something wasn't right. Behind that door was the primary bedroom, and within it, the walk-in closet with its collection of wet blankets. "How long have they been wet?" Detective Leon asked the forensic technician, who was carefully cataloging the contents of the closet. "Hard to say exactly, but the moisture hasn't penetrated the wooden shelves deeply. My guess is less than a week." Leon nodded, her eyes drawn to the photograph. The infant looked no more than 6 months old. The blanket it was swaddled in matched the pattern of the ones on the shelf, pale yellow with small ducks embroidered along the edges. The handwriting on the back, again, was small, precise, feminine. The investigation into Aliner Matthews' disappearance quickly became something more complex. Neighbors expressed shock when interviewed. Aliner had been a fixture in the community for nearly 3 decades. She volunteered at the library twice a week. She sang in the church choir. She seemed content in her solitude. "She never mentioned having children," said Martha Wilson, who lived next door for 15 years. "She doted on the neighborhood kids, though, always said they kept her young." The search of Aliner's house revealed nothing out of place except for the closet. Her bank accounts showed regular patterns of withdrawals and deposits. Her credit cards had been used at the local grocery store 3 days before her disappearance. Her car was still in the garage. Her purse was on the kitchen counter, containing her wallet, keys, and phone. The phone became a focus of the investigation. The call log showed regular Sunday calls to Patricia, brief conversations with local friends, appointments with doctors. Nothing unusual until detectives noticed a recurring number with no contact name attached. This number had called Alina every month on the 17th for the past 6 years. The calls lasted between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. The most recent call had come just 2 days before Alina vanished. The number traced back to a burner phone purchased with cash at a convenience store in Albany, New York, approximately 2 hours from Hartsdale. Security footage from the store showed a woman in her 30s, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, sunglasses obscuring her face, purchasing the phone 6 years ago. The quality of the footage made identification impossible. Patricia arrived from Boston the day after Officer Jensen's discovery. She moved through her sister's house like a ghost, touching surfaces as if trying to absorb some essence of Alina through her fingertips. "I don't understand," she kept saying. "I would have known if she had a child. We told each other everything." But when Detective Leon showed her the photo from the closet, Patricia's reaction suggested otherwise. Her hand trembled as she took the photograph, and her breathing quickened. "Patricia, do you recognize this baby?" The older woman's eyes remained fixed on the image. She said she'd never tell anyone. Tell anyone what? About the baby, about what happened that summer. The summer, it turned out, was 1979. Alina had been 18, Patricia 20. They had grown up in a strict religious household in rural Vermont. Their father was a deacon at the local church. Their mother taught Sunday school. Appearances mattered above all else. Alina got pregnant that spring, Patricia explained, her voice barely above a whisper as she sat in the Hartsdale police station. "Our parents were devastated. The shame of it, they couldn't bear it. They sent her away to a home for unwed mothers in Connecticut. That's how she ended up here. After everything, she stayed. She couldn't face going home." "And the baby?" Leon asked. She was told it was a boy, stillborn. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "She named him Samuel after our grandfather. She never even got to hold him." The revelation added another layer to the mystery. If Alina had been told her baby died, who was the infant in the photograph? And what did "again" mean? The investigation expanded. Records from the Blessed Heart Home for unwed mothers confirmed that Alina Matthews had been a resident from March to September 1979. The home had closed in 1986 amid allegations of illegal adoptions and falsified death certificates. Several former employees had been charged, though most cases were dropped due to insufficient evidence. One name appeared repeatedly in the old case files: Dr. Thomas Brenner, the physician who had overseen births at Blessed Heart. Now in his 80s, Brenner was living in a nursing home just outside Hartford. His mind drifted in and out of lucidity, but during one clear moment, he remembered Alina. Pretty girl, quiet, she had complications. His roomy eyes seemed to look through Detective Leon rather than at her. The baby was small. She wasn't supposed to see it. But she did. She held it for a moment, just a moment, before the sedation took full effect. And was the baby stillborn, Dr. Brenner? The old man's gaze sharpened momentarily. That's what the paperwork says. DNA testing on the blankets revealed something investigators hadn't expected. The blankets contained genetic material from 2 different infants, both female, both sharing maternal DNA consistent with Alina being their mother. Neither showed signs of contamination that would suggest decades had passed since contact. The pill bottles found in the closet were prescribed to Alina for depression and anxiety. The most recent refill had been picked up 3 days before her disappearance, but toxicology tests on the bottles themselves showed traces of a powerful sedative not included in her prescriptions. Meanwhile, the search for Alina continued. Her photograph appeared on local news broadcasts. Volunteers combed the wooded areas surrounding Hartsdale. Divers checked the lake at the center of Mapleview Park, where Alina often walked in the evenings. Then, 17 days after her disappearance, Alina's credit card was used at a gas station in Albany, not far from where the burner phone had been purchased years earlier. Security footage showed a woman in her 30s filling a tank of a blue sedan. In the back seat, barely visible through tinted windows, sat an older woman who resembled Alina. The license plate led police to a rental car registered to Claire Delaney, a 36-year-old nurse at Albany Medical Center. When officers arrived at her address, a small apartment above a florist shop, they found the place empty. Neighbors said Delaney had lived there for about 5 years. She kept to herself, worked night shifts, and was rarely seen during daylight hours. "She had a visitor recently," said the florist from downstairs. "An older lady. I thought maybe it was her mother." Claire Delaney's employment records showed she had previously worked at 3 different hospitals across the Northeast, never staying more than 2 years at each. Before becoming a nurse, she had been adopted as an infant by a couple from Massachusetts. Her birth certificate listed her date of birth as September 12, 1989, exactly 10 years after Alina Matthews had given birth at Blessed Heart. The pieces were beginning to form a picture, but one with edges that refused to align perfectly. Had Alina discovered that her child hadn't died? Had Claire Delaney discovered her birth mother? Why would Alina go willingly with the woman who might be her daughter, leaving behind the bizarre scene in the closet? The answer came in the form of a letter, delivered to Patricia's hotel room 2 days after the gas station sighting. The envelope contained no return address, but the handwriting matched Alina's. "Dearest Patricia," it read, "by the time you receive this, I will be where I need to be. Please don't look for me. There are things I've learned that I cannot unlearn, mistakes that cannot be undone. She came to me 6 years ago with questions. I had answers I couldn't share, not until I was certain, and now I am. They took my babies, Pat, both of them. They told me they died, but they lived. Claire found me, and now we've found her sister. I have to make it right. Please understand. I will always love you, Alina." 3 months later, a property manager in a small coastal town in Maine called the police after tenants complained of a strange odor coming from a recently rented cottage. Inside, officers found the bodies of 3 women. The oldest was identified as Alina Matthews. The other 2, both in their 30s, were identified as Claire Delaney and Meredith Lange. Toxicology reports showed all 3 had consumed a mixture of wine and the same sedative found on the pill bottles in Alina's closet. Handwritten letters found at the scene suggested a suicide pact. Alina's letter explained that Claire had discovered her birth records had been falsified after a routine medical test revealed a genetic condition. Research led her to Blessed Heart and eventually to Alina. During their secret meetings over 6 years, they pieced together that Alina had given birth to twins, both girls, both declared stillborn, both adopted out to different families. Claire had tracked down her sister Meredith. The 3 women had decided to reunite, but the weight of the decades of loss and deception had proven too much to bear. In Alina's bedroom in the main cottage, investigators found a closet. Inside were 3 blankets, pale yellow with ducks embroidered along the edges, dry this time, neatly folded. Between them, a single photograph of 2 infant girls swaddled together. On the back, in Alina's precise handwriting, complete. The case was officially closed in December, but in Hartsdale, residents still speak in hushed tones about the teacher with the perfect garden and the devastating secret. And sometimes, when passing the house on Maple Avenue, They swear they can smell the faint scent of chlorine drifting from an upstairs window, even though no one has lived there for years. Story 10. In the quiet stillness of the night, the old Victorian-era home held a secret, hidden behind layers of time and wallpaper. Michael and Sarah Klein, the new occupants, embarked on a journey they never anticipated when a simple water stain led to the discovery of a mysterious name etched across the walls. Alina Winters, those two words, repeated endlessly in ink, captured their imagination and stirred a sense of unease within them. Who was she, and why was her name haunting the very foundation of their new abode? As they delved deeper into the history of the house, a chilling connection emerged. The woman who had sold them the property bore a striking resemblance to the missing Alina Winters from decades past. A missing persons case long forgotten, now brought back to life by the walls themselves. The layers of wallpaper peeled away, revealing not just a name but a story of obsession and tragedy. Alina's disappearance had been shrouded in mystery, with no closure for her loved ones. But as Michael and Sarah uncovered more clues, they found themselves drawn into a web of deceit and fractured identities. The revelation of hidden spaces beneath the floorboards unveiled a complex web of identities, each one a piece of a puzzle that led back to a woman named Rebecca Eldridge. A psychiatric patient with a dark past and a fractured mind, Rebecca had taken on the persona of Alina, weaving a tapestry of lies and deception that spanned decades. The walls of the house bore witness to Rebecca's inner turmoil, her desperate attempt to hold on to reality slipping away with each stroke of the pen. The truth, buried beneath layers of deception, finally came to light as forensic teams unearthed the remains of Alina Winters from the backyard. Rebecca, masquerading as Margaret Cavendish, was apprehended, her facade crumbling in the face of overwhelming evidence. The names on the wall, a testament to her guilt and fractured psyche, became both a memorial and a confession to a crime long forgotten. As the story unfolded, Michael and Sarah's dream home transformed into a landmark of true crime, forever marked by the echoes of the past that lingered within its walls. The house where secrets whispered in the night, where the past and present intertwined in a dance of shadows and light. And as the night deepened, the house stood silent, a sentinel of mysteries and memories, inviting the listener to unravel its secrets and drift into a peaceful slumber, carried away by the whispers of a story long told. Story 11. She cleared the mist from the mirror, gazing at her reflection. Everything seemed normal, her face, her attire. Yet an unsettling feeling crept in. A flicker caught in the corner of her eye, a movement not of her own making. When she turned away, her reflection remained motionless, observing. Thus began the enigma of Rebecca Thorne, sparked by that eerie moment in her bathroom. What transpired next puzzled investigators and cast a shadow over the community for years to come. Rebecca resided in a humble apartment in a serene suburban area, living a solitary existence. Known as methodical and reserved, she maintained a polite distance from her neighbors while following a routine. Her occupation as a data analyst for a medium-sized company dictated her life with precision and order. No one could have foreseen that she would become enmeshed in one of the most enigmatic criminal inquiries of the era. The initial signs were subtle. Objects in Rebecca's home began shifting inexplicably, nothing missing, just rearranged. A coffee cup relocated, books shuffled, her toothbrush in an unfamiliar spot. She brushed off these occurrences as mere lapses in memory, attributing them to long hours spent scrutinizing spreadsheets under harsh fluorescent lights. Detective Marion Shaw was notified when Rebecca, after enduring weeks of these disturbances, finally reached out to the authorities. Initially deemed non-criminal, more suited for mental health services than police involvement, Shaw cataloged the complaint among low-priority cases. There was no tangible evidence, Shaw later recounted. No signs of forced entry, no missing items, just a woman unsettled in her own home. The pivotal moment arrived with the bathroom mirror incident. During her subsequent interaction with law enforcement, Rebecca recounted in vivid detail how her reflection seemed to move independently, how she sensed a constant gaze even in solitude. This time she presented proof: a self-installed security camera aimed at her front door. The footage unveiled a chilling revelation that sent shivers down the spines of even the seasoned officers. The grainy video captured Rebecca departing for work in the morning. Yet 20 minutes later, an identical figure to Rebecca used a key to enter her apartment. Forensic experts scrutinized the footage for signs of manipulation or tampering, finding none. The person mirrored Rebecca's movements, attire, and even carried her distinctive leather bag. However, workplace security footage time-stamped Rebecca already present at her office building across town. "We're facing a doppelganger scenario," Detective Shaw informed her superior. "Someone who has meticulously studied Ms. Thorne and can replicate her with unsettling accuracy." The probe intensified as fingerprints throughout the apartment solely matched Rebecca's, devoid of foreign DNA. Neighbors reported nothing amiss, just Rebecca's routine comings and goings. Mrs. Keller, a neighbor, mentioned an odd encounter with Rebecca, receiving no response upon her return home, an anomaly, yet not alarming. Rebecca commenced documenting the disturbances in a journal. Minor alterations in her home escalated. Unexplained vanishing food from the fridge, unauthorized searches on her computer, and unsettling selfies on her phone resembling her but devoid of her memory. Some snapshots displayed a subtly off-kilter expression, a smile too wide, eyes too intense. "I feel as though I'm losing my mind," she confided to Detective Shaw during their third meeting. "Or perhaps someone is orchestrating this faudette to make me believe so." The breakthrough surfaced when a pattern emerged in the security footage. The doppelganger only infiltrated when Rebecca left for specific engagements, therapy sessions, yoga classes, Sunday morning grocery runs, pre-planned activities with predictable durations. "Someone is intimately acquainted with your routine," Shaw elucidated. "This isn't random, it's a calculated surveillance and infiltration." A forensic psychologist theorized a fixation case, someone fixated on assuming Rebecca's identity, mirroring her life, and potentially supplanting her entirely. Such occurrences, rare yet documented, manifested when an individual fixated on a victim embodying traits they coveted: stability, beauty, success, normalcy. The scope narrowed when Rebecca mentioned a former coworker, Lily Winters, expelled for escalating erratic behavior. Lily had closely collaborated with Rebecca, remarking on their similarities. Post-dismissal, she bombarded Rebecca with unsettling emails implying a shared persona. "We could be interchangeable," one correspondent claimed. "At times, I feel I embody you more than you do." Detective Shaw obtained a search warrant for Lily's abode. What they unearthed elevated the case from unsettling to chilling. A room within Lily's residence had been transformed into a shrine-like replica of Rebecca's bedroom. The walls adorned with countless images of Rebecca's daily routines, outings, social gatherings, all captured without her knowledge. A wardrobe filled with replicas of Rebecca's clothing, cosmetics mirroring her preferred brands, accompanied by meticulous notes on her mannerisms, speech patterns, and daily rituals. Most disturbing were the practice videos where Lily mimicked Rebecca's gait, gestures, and expressions. The evolution from clumsy mimicry to near-perfect replication was evident. She aspired to embody me, Rebecca murmured upon viewing the evidence. Not merely imitate me, but erase me entirely. Forensic experts uncovered advanced tools for forging keys and cloning electronic access cards. Lily maintained an intricate system to monitor Rebecca's movements, including a calendar forecasting her activities. What remained elusive was Lily's endgame. Diaries in her possession contained rambling entries vacillating between first and third person, interchanging me and her in the same paragraph. The final entry sent shivers down investigators' spines. Soon, only one of us will prevail. The stronger version shall endure. Upon the authorities moved to apprehend Lily, she had vanished. Her abrupt departure left her residence in disarray, some technology missing. A nationwide alert was issued. Rebecca was relocated to a secure facility under constant surveillance as authorities monitored every locale tied to her previous life for 3 weeks. Lily never surfaced. The case took a disquieting turn when a security guard at Rebecca's former workplace reported an anomaly. Despite being on leave and under protection at a secure location, Rebecca was sighted entering the building. Surveillance footage confirmed an individual identical to Rebecca utilized a valid ID card to access the premises, proceeded to her former workspace, and pored over her files for 40 minutes before departing. The revelation was clear. Lily hadn't fled. She had made her move, stepping into Rebecca's existence while the authentic Rebecca remained concealed. The case remains open to this day. Lily Winters evades capture, and Rebecca Thorne opted not to resume her past life, forging a new identity in an undisclosed location. Detective Shaw preserves a photograph on her desk, 2 strikingly similar women. One is Rebecca Thorne, the other Lily Winters. At times, she scrutinizes their features, seeking nuances that differentiate one from the other. The most chilling aspect, Shaw imparts to new recruits, isn't that someone can mirror your appearance or voice. It's the desire to become you so fervently that they obliterate themselves in the process. Our identity isn't solely our outward presentation, it's what we safeguard most vigilantly. And sometimes we only comprehend its worth when someone endeavors to seize it. Story 12, the town whispered of the house nestled at the edge of the woods, a place shrouded in mystery and forgotten by time. Its silhouette loomed solitary and imposing, the windows veiled in darkness, the porch weary under the weight of silent years. No one laid claim to its ownership, no memory lingered of the hands that fashioned its weathered walls. And yet when a band of wanderers strayed too near, they unearthed a chilling secret etched into the wooden facade, names carved deep as ancient prophecies. At the very bottom, fresh and untouched by the passage of days, a name unknown to all but one among them. A name that sparked a tremor of fear as it slipped from quivering lips. That name is mine. As night cloaked the land, a call pierced the stillness, a mere trespassing incident logged by dispatch. Mason Wright, the intrepid leader who stumbled upon his own name etched into the derelict dwelling, spoke in hushed tones through the receiver. Responding officers anticipated a routine case of juvenile mischief, a jest gone awry between comrades, but what awaited them transcended the realms of reason. Under the enshrouding darkness, Detective Sarah Keller arrived, her flashlight casting a feeble light that danced over the aged exterior of the house. The names, 27 in total, cascaded down the eastern wall, some fading into obscurity with time, others remaining stark and fresh as if engraved just moments ago. And at the base, Mason Wright, the incision still redolent of newly hewn wood. "I've never set foot here before," Mason professed, his breath materializing in ethereal clouds amidst the wintry air. "How could anyone have known my name?" The inquiry commenced with exhaustive background checks on each name inscribed. The findings sent a chill through the core of the detective team. Every name belonged to a soul vanished over the past 4 decades. Some cases had grown cold, others lingered in the realm of the unresolved. But a harrowing commonality threaded them together. All had disappeared while traversing the woods alone. Forensic experts meticulously documented the carvings, scrutinizing the depths, the techniques, the erosion of time. The eldest name, Rebecca Hansen, harked back to a missing persons dossier from 37 years prior, a tale of a young woman who ventured into the woods and was never seen again, save for a lone hiking boot discovered by a babbling brook. Interrogations with Mason yielded a steadfast narrative. He bore no ties to the area beyond this fateful hiking escapade with his college comrades. The trail chosen on a whim, guided by an online suggestion. His history bore no resemblance to the other names etched in haunting permanence on the wall outside. The spotlight pivoted to Mason's companions. Emily Chen, the group's photographer, offered snapshots capturing moments from their journey. Upon scrutiny, analysts discerned a disquieting presence, a blurred figure lurking in the backdrop of 3 separate captures. A phantom, tall and sinewy, perpetually ensconced behind swaying boughs. A sweep of the forsaken abode's interior unearthed a tableau of dread in the basement. Personal effects of the missing hikers meticulously arrayed on wooden shelves, watches frozen in time, backpacks laden with memories, cameras preserving the echoes of past adventures, each item tagged with a name corresponding to those on the exterior wall. Forensics unfurled a ghastly tapestry under ultraviolet light, the floor stained with the vestiges of efforts to erase the past. As the inquiry deepened, Detective Keller noted a disquieting shift in Mason's demeanor. Reports of spectral murmurs, enigmatic footprints leading to his dwelling but vanishing upon departure, shadowy figures haunting his periphery. Safeguards were mounted, yet Mason's paranoia burgeoned. The breakthrough materialized with the exhumation of land records buried in county archives. The house, a possession of the reclusive huntsman Victor Blackwood, a specter of the woods seldom glimpsed save for fleeting encounters with a towering, emaciated figure who shunned discourse. Blackwood vanished 15 years prior, his fate left uncharted by official scrutiny. Detective Keller procured a warrant to delve deeper into the encircling forest. A squadron unearthed primitive hunting blinds camouflaged amidst well-trodden paths. Within one, a journal lay unveiled, chronicling meticulous observations of hikers, their trajectories, their gear, their routines. The script mirrored samples from Blackwood's scant records, evolving from hunting strategies for fauna to chilling treatises on humans as quarry. A manhunt spanning jurisdictions ignited for Blackwood, the woods scoured by helicopters armed with thermal optics, ground teams scouring every crevice. Yet the elusive hunter eluded capture. Mason withdrew, his seclusion echoing through vacant chambers. On his chamber wall, a freshly etched epitaph, "The pursuer becomes the pursued." The quest for Mason endured, culminating in a grim revelation during a secondary sweep of Blackwood's abode. Concealed behind a false panel in the cellar, a workshop unfurled, replete with woodworking implements, vials of preservatives, and a fresh carving awaiting its ascension to the exterior wall. A name etched upon it, instantly recognized by Detective Keller, the lead forensic examiner, absent from duty, unresponsive to calls. A cordon of surveillance enveloped the house, vigilant eyes tracking every ingress. Sensors poised for the slightest intrusion. The trap was set. 3 nights hence, alarms blared. Surveillance footage captured a specter materializing from the forest's depth, a specter elongated and sinuous, gliding with uncanny poise. Tactical units surged forth, only for the cameras to falter momentarily. Upon restoration, the specter had dissolved into the night's embrace. The house endures under ceaseless vigilance, a silent sentinel of the unfathomable. Mason and the forensic savant vanished without a trace. The enigma persists as fresh vanishings resonate from other sylvan realms. The names etched upon the wall have transcended into the realm of myth among investigators. Some shun their invocation, others avert their gaze. Local wanderers skirt the house's periphery, wary that mere utterance may consign them to the grim litany of the unspoken names. Story 13, the gentle current whispered softly that morning, the water a mirror of tranquility. The fisherman's eyes caught a glimpse of something out of place, a suitcase drifting near the shore. Initially dismissing it as discarded clothing, a pungent odor drew him closer. Chains embraced the weathered case, hinting at its grim history. When authorities pried it open, the contents unveiled a chilling truth, not garments, but strands of hair, fingers frozen in a haunting grip. Nestled at the bottom, a cryptic note whispered, "This isn't the first." Detective Sarah Mercer arrived at the eerie scene, holding her handkerchief against the oppressive scent. The victim, a woman in her 30s, lay still with dark locks and pallid skin marked by water's touch. The meticulous medical examiner meticulously catalogued each detail before the body was respectfully carried away. What struck Mercer was not just the method of disposal, but the meticulous care taken in presenting the victim manicured nails, freshly styled hair, adorned in lavish attire. The victim was identified as Catherine Walsh, a successful real estate agent renowned for selling opulent properties. Divorced, childless, she resided in an affluent neighborhood, known for her ambition, precision, and discretion. Missing persons report painted a picture of a dedicated professional, vanished on the day of a crucial showing to esteemed clients. Investigations unfolded at Walsh's immaculate modernist home, a realm of pristine perfection. Designer furniture stood in silent elegance, every surface devoid of dust. The refrigerator housed meticulously labeled meals, the closet a symphony of colors and protective bags for her shoes. Ajar, a drawer in her office revealed a leather-bound journal. The last entry ominously stated, "He's watching again. Same car, different plates." Forensic scrutiny of Walsh's digital footprint unveiled a series of unsettling emails from anonymous senders, all echoing the phrase, "I see your perfection." Each message sent precisely at the same time on different days. Her online searches veered towards home security systems and self-defense tools. Mercer's intuition connected these clues, painting a portrait of a meticulous, ritualistic killer. A breakthrough materialized from an unexpected source. A pawn shop owner recognized Walsh's distinctive emerald necklace, absent from her possessions. The culprit was revealed as Michael Linden, a nondescript maintenance worker with a penchant for silence. Surveillance footage chronicled his surreptitious visits to Walsh's abode, sometimes with his maintenance cart, other times without. Linden's apartment harbored a macabre collection of clandestine photos of Walsh and other women, their likenesses eerie in their similarity. A hidden shrine unveiled his twisted devotion, meticulous notes detailing their lives, habits, and perceived imperfections. Confronted with irrefutable evidence, Linden maintained a chilling composure. He confessed they were imperfect, their veneer of flawlessness a facade. Catherine's desk drawer was always amiss, her lipstick never quite perfect, her perfection was a lie. The search for the other victims mentioned in his note led to the recovery of 2 more suitcases, each holding a tragic tale mirroring Walsh's fate. During the trial, Linden sat stoically as his meticulous methods were scrutinized, stalking, observing, and ultimately perfecting his victims before extinguishing their lives. The judge's gavel sealed his fate, a lifetime behind bars, devoid of redemption. For Detective Mercer, the case concluded officially, yet whispers of unanswered queries lingered. What inner flaw drove Lyndon to his monstrous acts? What shadows lurked in his past, seeking absolution through his victims? As the river's gentle flow carried away all traces, chilling reminders adorned Mercer's desk, those haunting notebooks, windows into a darkness veiled within seemingly ordinary lives. In the precinct's shadows, the truth whispered softly that darkness dwells not just in the depths of the unknown, but sometimes in the hearts of those we pass by every day, shrouded in the guise of normalcy, awaiting the moment to reveal their true nature. Story 14. The ancient library faced its impending demise, its fate sealed by the hands of relentless workers on the brink of completing their task. Amidst the chaos of destruction, a moment of serendipity unfolded as one laborer stumbled upon a concealed latch cleverly disguised within the confines of a bookshelf. With a gentle click, the bookshelf swung open, revealing a clandestine passageway leading to a hidden chamber. The air within was heavy, stagnant with the weight of time, untouched by human presence for decades. The hidden room bore no semblance of comfort, only a solitary chair stationed at its center, firmly bolted to the floor. Etched repeatedly on the walls, a haunting message echoed in the dim light, "I am still here." The construction foreman swiftly contacted the authorities, setting in motion a chain of events that would unravel a sinister mystery lurking within the shadows of the old library. Detective Morgan Walsh, a seasoned investigator with 2 decades of experience, stood at the threshold, his flashlight piercing the darkness like a beacon of truth, revealing the unsettling message that adorned the walls. "Secure the area," Walsh directed his team, his voice resonating in the confined space. "No one disturbs anything until forensics arrives." The library's history whispered tales of intrigue and tragedy. Once owned by the esteemed Harrington family, the building had been bequeathed to the public following the enigmatic disappearance of their daughter, Rebecca. Vanishing during her final year of college, Rebecca left behind no trace save for her abandoned car discovered near the woods. Despite exhaustive searches and interviews, the mystery of her whereabouts remained unsolved, shrouded in uncertainty. While speculations hinted at a voluntary departure, her family clung to the belief that a darker fate had befallen her. As forensic experts meticulously combed through the hidden chamber, they unearthed hair and fiber samples embedded in the aged chair. Traces of blood and skin cells intermingled with the scratches on the wall, hinting at a tumultuous struggle. Initial analysis suggested the biological evidence belonged to a young female, a revelation that sent shivers down the spines of the investigative team. Walsh delved into the annals of the Harrington family's past, captivated by the peculiar timing of the library donation following Rebecca's disappearance. A deeper probe unearthed a disturbing connection. The contractor responsible for installing the secretive bookshelf had ties to Maxwell Harrington, Rebecca's uncle and the patriarch of the family. Financial records hinted at clandestine dealings, with exorbitant payments made to the contractor far exceeding standard renovation costs. Former library staff offered glimpses into a past masked by shadows. None had been privy to the concealed room, though an elderly librarian recalled Maxwell's solitary vigils in that secluded section of the building after hours. The revelation added a layer of unease to an already chilling narrative. The investigation took a harrowing turn when DNA analysis confirmed the genetic match between samples found in the hidden room and Rebecca's hairbrush. The pieces of the puzzle coalesced into a grim tableau. Rebecca had not fled, but had been held captive behind the very bookshelf that shielded her prison from prying eyes. With a warrant in hand, detectives descended upon the Harrington estate, unearthing a leather-bound journal secreted within a hidden compartment of Maxwell's study. The journal chronicled a disturbing obsession, culminating in a chilling entry that spoke of silencing Rebecca to protect a tarnished legacy. Confronted with irrefutable evidence, Maxwell's stoic facade crumbled, revealing a heart blackened by greed and desperation. In a hollow confession, he recounted the tragic events that led to Rebecca's demise, painting a portrait of betrayal and malice. Beneath the floor of the hidden chamber, human remains lay dormant, carrying with them the weight of a life extinguished too soon. The courtroom bore witness to Maxwell's reckoning as justice meted out its final verdict, bringing a measure of closure to a family torn asunder by secrets and lies. The library, once slated for destruction, now stood as a monument to remembrance and redemption. Bouquets of flowers adorned its entrance, a tribute to a lost soul whose voice, though silenced, echoed eternally through the walls that had caged her. In the end, it was Rebecca's haunting message, "I am still here," that reverberated through time, ensuring that her spirit would linger on, a testament to the enduring power of truth and the inexorable march of justice. Story 15. It arrived in the mail, wrapped in a plain envelope with no return address. A single brass key worn with time. The homeowner didn't recognize it, but something about it felt familiar. When she slid it into every lock she owned, nothing turned. It wasn't hers. But when she placed it on the coffee table, the old grandfather clock in the hallway let out a single, hollow chime despite having been broken for years. Sarah Miller reported the strange occurrence to authorities after finding the mysterious key. What seemed like an odd mishap soon unraveled into one of the most disturbing criminal investigations the quiet suburban neighborhood had ever witnessed. The responding officer initially dismissed her concerns. A key in the mail, perhaps a mistake, he suggested, but Sarah insisted something felt wrong. The officer reluctantly took the key as evidence, mostly to appease her, placing it in a small evidence bag that would later become central to a sprawling investigation. Detective Robert Harmon received the case file during the morning briefing. A veteran investigator with the Special Victims Unit, he had developed an intuition for cases that would evolve beyond their seemingly innocuous beginnings. The brass key sat on his desk, unremarkable yet somehow unsettling. Background checks revealed Sarah had no criminal history. A retired high school English teacher, widowed, with 2 adult children living across the country. Nothing suspicious in her financial records, phone logs, or social media. She appeared to be exactly what she claimed, an innocent recipient of something strange. The forensic team found no fingerprints on the key besides Sarah's. The envelope yielded nothing except a generic postmark from the regional distribution center. No DNA, no trace evidence. The key itself was a standard Schlage, available at any hardware store, though well worn and at least several years old. The breakthrough came unexpectedly when Detective Harmon decided to run the key's unique bidding pattern through the department database. A cold case from 7 years prior had documented an identical key pattern belonging to a storage unit where investigators had found blood-stained carpet, cutting tools, and photographs of unidentified women. The original investigation had stalled without sufficient evidence to identify a suspect. Harmon pulled the dusty case files. The detective who had worked the case had since retired. The storage unit had been rented under a false identity, paid in cash. Surveillance footage had long been overwritten. The evidence collected had yielded partial DNA samples, but no matches in any criminal database. The photographs recovered from the storage unit showed 5 different women, all appearing unconscious. Only 3 had been identified during the original investigation, all reported missing but never found. Their cases remained open, classified as suspected homicides without bodies. Sarah Miller recognized none of the women when shown the photographs. She grew increasingly anxious as the investigation proceeded, installing new locks and a security system in her home. The question lingered, why had someone sent her this key? Harmon ordered a fresh analysis of the original evidence using newer techniques. The partial DNA sample was expanded and run through genealogical databases. This yielded a distant familial match, a second cousin twice removed from the suspect. Working backward through family trees, investigators narrowed their focus to Harold Jenkins, who had lived 2 streets away from Sarah Miller until moving away approximately 6 years ago. His current whereabouts were unknown. Further investigation revealed Jenkins had been a substitute teacher at the same school where Sarah taught, though they had minimal documented interaction. His employment records showed scattered work history, long unexplained gaps, and frequent relocations. His former residence yielded nothing unusual upon inspection. Neighbors described him as quiet, unremarkable, someone who kept to himself, the common refrain that often follows revelations about predators hiding in plain sight. The big question remained unanswered: why send the key now? Why to Sarah Miller? Harmon theorized it might be a trophy, a warning, or perhaps a macabre invitation. The search for Jenkins intensified. His driver's license hadn't been renewed, no credit card activity, no tax returns. The digital breadcrumbs people typically leave behind were conspicuously absent, suggesting an intentional effort to remain untraceable. The true horror of the case emerged when authorities investigated a small cabin registered to Jenkins' deceased mother. Beneath the weathered wooden floorboards, investigators discovered a concealed room accessible only through a trapdoor. Inside, meticulously organized shelves held dozens of identical brass keys, each with a name and date engraved on a small attached tag. 5 keys corresponded to the women from the photographs. The remaining keys, 27 in total, presented a horrifying implication of additional victims previously unknown to authorities. Buried behind the cabin, forensic teams recovered human remains. The excavation continued for weeks as investigators unearthed multiple bodies in varying states of decomposition. Sarah received round-the-clock protection as the manhunt for Jenkins expanded nationwide. Behavioral analysts suggested the key represented a twisted invitation, Jenkins selecting Sarah as someone to appreciate his work. The press dubbed him the Keymaster, a name that spread rapidly across national headlines. Fear permeated the community as residents questioned how such horror had existed among them undetected. Detection dogs tracked a scent from the cabin into the surrounding wilderness. Search teams combed dense forest areas. Thermal imaging drones scanned terrain too dangerous for ground teams. The manhunt became one of the largest in regional history. A wildlife photographer hiking in remote woods captured an image of someone matching Jenkins' description. The grainy photograph showed a bearded man with hollow eyes carrying a backpack, heading deeper into the wilderness. Authorities closed in on the area, establishing a perimeter. Tactical teams navigated difficult terrain while psychological profilers predicted Jenkins would not surrender. They anticipated he might have prepared for this contingency with hidden supplies and escape routes. The final confrontation occurred when a patrol officer encountered Jenkins attempting to cross a river. Rather than surrender, Jenkins retreated to higher ground, where he barricaded himself in an abandoned fire observation tower. Negotiators attempted communication for hours without response. When tactical teams finally breached the tower, they found Jenkins dead from a self-inflicted wound. Beside his body lay a journal containing detailed accounts of his crimes, alongside a single brass key identical to the one Sarah had received. Inside a waterproof container, investigators discovered additional evidence, including photographs, maps marking burial locations, and personal effects taken from victims, a methodically preserved record of atrocities spanning nearly a decade. The journal's final entry addressed Sarah directly. "You never noticed me, but I noticed everything about you. The key opens nothing because what I wanted to give you cannot be unlocked with metal, only with recognition. Now everyone will remember my name." The subsequent investigation identified 32 victims in total. Families who had spent years wondering about missing loved ones finally received answers, though the closure came with the unbearable weight of confirmed tragedy. Sarah never returned to her home, unable to reconcile the horror that had brushed so close to her ordinary life. The grandfather clock that had mysteriously chimed was examined and found to contain a small wireless receiver Jenkins had been watching, waiting for the moment she received his gift. The case remains one of the most disturbing examples of predatory behavior hiding beneath a veneer of normalcy. Psychological researchers continue studying Jenkins' writings, seeking insights to identify similar offenders before they act. And somewhere in an evidence locker, a collection of brass keys sits in silent testimony to lives cut short, each key opening nothing, yet unlocking a devastating truth about the darkness that sometimes hides behind unremarkable facades. Story 16. She had felt the urge to transform the nursery before the little one's arrival. The walls, once adorned in a faded blue hue, held secrets within their very essence. As she carefully applied the first coat of pristine white paint, a hidden revelation slowly emerged from beneath a series of letters, faint at first, then gradually sharpening into clarity. A cryptic message etched beneath the surface. "Don't let it hear you," her breath hitched in her throat. Stepping back, her eyes widened at the sight before her tiny handprints imprinted in the fresh paint, their positioning too high for any child to reach. This peculiar discovery within the nursery of the Morgan residence marked the inception of what would later be known as the Whispering House case. The young couple had acquired the Victorian-style dwelling only a few months prior for a remarkably low price, oblivious to the property's dark past. Detective Sarah Klein, notebook in hand, arrived at the residence and pressed the doorbell. A woman, her belly swollen with child beneath her paint-splattered overalls, greeted her. Dark circles framed her tired eyes, evidence of sleepless nights. The detective observed the woman's trembling hands as she recounted the unsettling finding of the hidden message and handprints. "The previous occupants vanished suddenly," the woman explained. "Neighbors mentioned they departed in the dead of night, leaving without a trace of a moving truck, only packing essentials into their car." Detective Klein traversed the historic abode, the aged floorboards creaking beneath her steps. Standing within the nursery, she scrutinized the partially painted wall, the enigmatic message still visible where the paint job had been abruptly halted. Adjacent to it, 5 small handprints adorned the wet paint, positioned at an adult's shoulder height. Back at the precinct, Detective Klein delved into records concerning the property. The house had changed owners 8 times within 30 years, a remarkably high turnover rate. Each family had resided for less than 2 years. More disturbing were the child welfare reports linked to 3 of those families. Children had spoken of whispers emanating from the walls and invisible eyes watching them as they slept. The detective delved deeper, uncovering construction records and historical documents. The house had once been under the ownership of Alina Blackwood, a wealthy widow devoid of her own offspring who had operated a small orphanage on the premises during the early industrial era. Newspaper clippings mentioned 5 children who had mysteriously disappeared from her care, believed to have run away, a common occurrence for orphans in that era. Upon Aliner's demise, workers renovating the house stumbled upon a sealed room hidden behind the nursery wall. Inside, they discovered remnants of children's belongings, tiny shoes, toys, and clothing, but no trace of their bodies. The case had gone cold, consigned to dusty archives. Interviewing former residents, Detective Klein uncovered a disconcerting pattern. Every family with children recounted peculiar incidents, toys rearranged overnight, echoes of childish laughter resonating through empty corridors, and crayon drawings materializing on walls. Most dismissed these occurrences as mere figments of imagination until the mysterious messages surfaced during repainting. A forensic linguist scrutinized photographs of the writing, determining it to match samples from Aliner Blackwood's journals. More unsettling were the handprints uniform in size and placement over decades, despite different children inhabiting the home. The investigation took a darker turn as the detective persuaded the current homeowners to permit ground-penetrating radar scanning in the basement. The technician pointed out anomalies in the readings, 5 distinct shapes detected beneath the concrete floor, each approximately child-sized. Upon breaking through the concrete, a grim confirmation was unveiled, 5 sets of small remains arranged in a circle. Forensic analysis indicated the children had perished during Aliner's tenure at the house, each wearing a pendant engraved with their name, the very 5 orphans who were presumed to have absconded. Luminol was sprayed throughout the nursery as the detective sought further clarity. In the obscurity, handprints glowed on every wall, concealed beneath layers of paint, invisible to the naked eye. Countless prints at varying heights, as though the children had been attempting to ascend. Aliner's journals, retrieved from county archives, unveiled her perverse rationale. She harbored the belief that orphaned children harbored a unique spiritual essence. By confining them within the hidden chamber, she believed she could harness their life force to prolong her own existence. The children had etched their warnings into the wall using fingernails and bits of metal, hopeful that future occupants would unravel their tragic fate. The case concluded with the dignified burial of the 5 victims, their names finally recognized not as runaways but as casualties of murder. The house lay desolate thereafter, the expectant couple refusing to return even for their possessions. Detective Klein submitted her final report, enclosing photographs of the luminous handprints and the hidden message beneath the paint. She noted that while justice had been served for the original victims, an inexplicable presence lingered within the house, an entity that persisted in reaching out through layers of time and paint. The nursery walls were demolished during remediation, yet workers attested to hearing children's whispers emanating from the debris. Each laborer declined to return once their shift concluded. The house was eventually condemned, becoming another cold case stored away in a dusty cabinet, a physical resolution attained, yet enigmatic questions left unanswered. The detective retained one photograph from the investigation, a haunting image of 5 luminol handprints aglow in the darkness, a poignant reminder that certain atrocities leave indelible imprints that no amount of fresh paint can conceal. Story 17. In the quiet of the night, a faint flicker danced across the baby monitor's screen, a fleeting anomaly that caught the mother's attention. She brushed it off as a glitch, a mere blip in the digital realm. But then the gentle hum of static filled the room, and a voice, soft and soothing, whispered, "SHHH, go back to sleep." A chill crept down her spine, her heartbeat quickening as she listened, her instincts on high alert. With a rush of adrenaline, she hurried to her son's room, the dread gripping her heart like icy fingers. But as she burst through the door, panic seizing her chest, she found the crib empty, the room still and silent. The window remained shut, the door securely locked. The only unsettling sight was the stuffed rabbit lying on the floor, its unblinking black eyes fixed on her, a silent witness to the unfolding mystery. Rebecca's screams pierced the night, a primal cry of fear and anguish that echoed through the walls, reaching the ears of concerned neighbors who dialed emergency services without hesitation. When the authorities arrived, they discovered Rebecca cradling the stuffed rabbit, lost in a world of disbelief and sorrow, her mind unable to grasp the unfathomable reality before her. Her precious 4-month-old son, Samuel, had vanished into thin air, leaving behind a void that no words could fill. The investigation that followed was shrouded in shadows and uncertainty. No signs of forced entry marred the household, the security system standing as a silent sentinel through the night. The recorded footage from the baby monitor offered only cryptic glimpses of the inexplicable events that had unfolded, a voice from beyond, a presence unseen. Suspicion loomed over Rebecca, casting a shadow of doubt on her every word and action. Her husband, Daniel, absent on business during the disappearance, added a layer of complexity to the unfolding tragedy. Their strained relationship, exacerbated by the challenges of parenthood and Rebecca's battle with postpartum depression, became a focal point for scrutiny and speculation. As the investigation delved deeper, a breakthrough emerged like a faint glimmer of light in the darkness. Forensic analysis uncovered minute fibers on the nursery windowsill, foreign yet familiar, hinting at a clandestine entry from outside. The focus shifted, revealing a trail of breadcrumbs leading to a figure skilled in the art of stealth and deception. Daniel's return brought a new dimension to the mystery, his troubled past and hidden secrets unraveling like a thread pulled taut. An avid climber, his hands bore the marks of his rugged pursuits, a detail that did not escape the keen eyes of the investigators. A web of deceit and betrayal unfurled, exposing a second life, a second family hidden in the shadows of his past. The baby monitor, once a harbinger of dread, now stood at the center of the storm, its digital whispers echoing a tale of manipulation and deceit. The truth, veiled in layers of deception, led the authorities to a chilling discovery: a basement where Samuel lay, tended to by a woman named Elaine, a ghost from Daniel's past with a heart consumed by loss and longing. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place, revealing a twisted saga of love turned sour, of greed and desperation that drove two souls to commit unspeakable acts. Daniel and Elaine's intricate plan, woven with threads of betrayal, unraveled before the eyes of justice, sealing their fates with a finality that echoed through the courtroom. Rebecca and Samuel, survivors of a nightmare they could never forget, embarked on a journey to rebuild their shattered lives, leaving behind the shadows of the past. The baby monitor, now silent and still, held within its memory the echoes of a night that changed everything, a night when innocence was stolen and darkness reigned. As the world grappled with the aftermath of the harrowing ordeal, a new awareness dawned, a vigilance born of tragedy, a resolve to protect the vulnerable against the insidious threats that lurked in the digital realm. Samuel, oblivious to the turmoil that had engulfed his infancy, grew up in the light of a new day, his future unmarred by the shadows of the past. Rebecca, haunted by the memories that lingered like ghosts in the corners of her mind, kept the stuffed rabbit hidden away, a a silent reminder of the truths that lay hidden beneath the surface. In its glassy black eyes, she saw a reflection of the darkness that had touched their lives, a darkness that could never be erased but only embraced as part of their shared history. The baby monitor, a silent sentinel of the night, bore witness to a tale of loss and redemption, of betrayal and resilience. Its whispers may have faded into the stillness of the night, but its legacy endured, a reminder that truth, however obscured, would always find a way to shine through the shadows. Story 18: The Hidden Observer. The realtor's listing made no mention of a basement. The blueprints held no clues about its existence. Yet beneath the old carpet in the living room of the Mercer family's new suburban home, a concealed door awaited discovery. The handle, heavy and rusted, required the combined effort of 3 family members to pry it open. As the door yielded, a rush of stale air, heavy with the scent of damp earth, greeted them. Descending the steps into the darkness, they anticipated storage space. Instead, they encountered a solitary chair beneath a swaying light bulb, casting eerie shadows. And on the wall behind the chair hung a series of photographs depicting them, images captured from within the confines of their own home. The Mercers had moved in during the winter, seeking character and history in the 2-story house with faded siding and creaking floors. Little did they realize the depth of history entwined within the walls, nor the upheaval it would bring to their present. Detective Sarah Connors, accompanied by her partner, arrived at the property to find the crime scene unit already at work, securing the area with fluttering yellow tape. Mrs. Mercer's voice had trembled over the phone as she recounted the shocking discovery beneath their floor. Connors wasted no time, instructing the forensic team to meticulously document every detail before anyone else ventured into the hidden basement. The basement, no larger than a standard bedroom, boasted concrete walls painted a dull gray, with a solitary chair anchored to the floor at its center. Above, the bare bulb cast stark shadows, its slow rotation fueled by an unseen draft. Yet it was the row of photographs that held the team's spellbound 37 images, arranged in precise chronological order. Examining the timestamps on the prints, Connor's partner remarked, "These go back almost 4 weeks. Look at this one, Mrs. Mercer asleep, Mr. Mercer at the kitchen table, the kids in their rooms." The absence of forced entry, stolen items, or activated security systems deepened the mystery. Privacy had been invaded, safety shattered. Delving into the property's past owners, the investigators unearthed unsettling details. Blueprints altered between sales, permits filed and retracted, inspection reports redacted in part. The pivotal moment arrived during the interview with the contractor who had renovated the house 7 years prior. His denial of the basement's existence, backed by a ghostly pallor, sent shivers through the team. Digital forensics uncovered a trove of additional images on a hidden memory card, showcasing not only the Mercers but past families, caught in intimate moments within their supposedly private domain. Audio files extracted from a buried weatherproof box revealed conversations from bedrooms, kitchens, living rooms recorded with precision, though the microphones remained elusive. Orders to dismantle walls, inspect vents, light fixtures, and outlets followed as the search intensified. Beyond the photograph wall lay a narrow passage leading to a monitoring station, a desk, a chair, a laptop linked to wireless cameras, and a journal brimming with meticulous observations on each family. The journal's author, Edward Kelvin, the house's enigmatic builder, who had vanished from public records, leaving behind a web of hidden surveillance. The journal's final entries hinted at a looming arrival the next family. Fingerprint analysis confirmed Kelvin's presence within the house's concealed spaces, where he had lurked unseen, observing the families as if they were actors in his private drama. Culminating in a 3-day manhunt, Kelvin was discovered ensconced in a crawl space, his emaciated form a stark contrast to the elaborate network of observation points he had meticulously crafted. Delusions of guardianship clouded his reasoning, blurring the line between homeowner and intruder. The Mercers, like those before them, fled the house, leaving behind possessions in a bid for escape. The trial exposed the labyrinth of surveillance within the house, designed by Kelvin to capture every moment of its inhabitants' lives without their knowledge. As the gavel fell, Kelvin remained detached, lost in the recesses of his mind, forever entwined with the structure he had molded into his personal theater. The property met its end in demolition, its secrets buried beneath fresh earth. Yet for the families who had dwelled within its walls, the specter of the hidden observer lingered. They questioned the safety of their sanctuaries, forever haunted by the unseen eyes that had watched, listened, and documented their lives in a house that harbored more than just memories. Story 19, the apartment exuded a sense of age and history, its creaking heating system and rattling pipes creating a familiar yet eerie ambience. She had grown accustomed to these sounds, dismissing them as part of the building's charm. But one night, a faint voice pierced through the vents, distinct and haunting. It whispered her name, sending a shiver down her spine. Pressing her ear against the grate, she felt a rush of cold air brush past her cheek, followed by a soft, almost playful declaration, "I know you can hear me." Detective Morgan Shaw found herself in the heart of the empty apartment, surrounded by a team of forensic specialists meticulously documenting the scene. The missing woman, Alina Reeves, had been absent for a week before anyone noticed her absence. The building's management had brushed off Alina's concerns about voices in the vents as mere quirks of the old infrastructure. Kneeling beside the vent, Shaw observed the deep scratch marks along its edges, evidence of a desperate struggle from within. The victim, known for her warmth and green thumb as a beloved kindergarten teacher, had shown signs of paranoia leading up to her disappearance. Her sister revealed during an interview that Alina believed someone was watching her and speaking to her through the vent, a detail that now took on a sinister significance. As Shaw delved deeper into the investigation, she uncovered unsettling clues. Fibers from Alina's clothing were found in the vent, along with a mysterious fingerprint inside the cover. Listening to recordings from Alina's phone, Shaw heard the chilling dialogue between her and an unknown presence, a voice beckoning her into the shadows. The building's murky past came to light, with a history of tenants fleeing and strange occurrences reported over the years. Suspicion fell on the building's superintendent, Harold Weber, whose calm facade cracked under Shaw's scrutiny. His connection to the previous tenants of apartment 4B raised red flags, hinting at a darker truth lurking within the building's walls. Forensics revealed a hidden passage in Alina's bathroom, a secret conduit allowing someone to move unseen throughout the structure. Inside, they discovered remnants of a clandestine existence, a voyeuristic lair filled with remnants of past tenants, a chilling testament to a twisted obsession. Weber's meticulously kept digital records exposed his disturbing fixation on Alina and others who had lived in the building. His arrest, though uneventful, unveiled a sinister pattern of manipulation and control, with victims unknowingly falling into his web of deceit. During the trial, Weber's facade of calm cracked only once, his eyes flashing with a glint of malice as he spoke of the building's whispered secrets. Found guilty on all charges, he left the courtroom with a haunting promise the echoes of his presence would linger, the building itself a witness to his dark legacy. Today, the once bustling apartment building stands silent and empty, its walls holding memories of past horrors. Despite attempts to renovate and erase the stains of the past, residents still report chilling whispers in the night, a reminder that some secrets are buried too deep to be forgotten. The building's ancient systems continue their symphony of groans and rattles, a ghostly echo of the darkness that once dwelled within its walls. Story 20. The motel stood there, a relic of a bygone era, its faded façade hinting at the transient nature of its guests. The receptionist handed her the key with a peculiar expression, a silent warning lingering in his gaze. "Just avoid the final door on the left," he whispered, his words a cryptic echo. Intrigue tugged at her, urging her to unravel the mystery veiled within those walls. That night, shrouded in the dim glow of flickering lights, she found herself standing before the ominous door. The brass handle sent a chill through her fingers, the wood rough against her palm. To the naked eye, it appeared no different from its companions, blending seamlessly into the nondescript corridor until she leaned in, her ear grazing the surface. A rhythmic breath, faint yet unmistakable, escaped from the other side, a haunting melody in the stillness of the night. Detective Morgan Reed awoke from her slumber, her mind foggy as she slipped beneath the yellow tape marking the threshold of the crime scene. A metallic tang tainted the air, a scent that spoke volumes to her seasoned senses. The room bore witness to a macabre tale, a pristine bathroom contrasted by a lifeless form sprawled on the floor, a stark tableau of beauty and horror. The victim, a young woman with golden locks splayed like a halo, lay in silent repose, her gaze fixed on eternity. Reed knelt beside her, a silent sentinel in the face of tragedy, mindful not to disturb the solemn markers scattered around her. The third in a series, the forensic expert intoned, his voice devoid of emotion as he captured the scene with his lens. The mark of a familiar hand. Reed absorbed his words in silence, her gaze tracing the contours of the victim's form. The opulent attire adorning her frame clashed with the humble setting, a puzzle begging to be solved. This was no crime of opportunity, it was a deliberate act, a twisted dance orchestrated by a malevolent force. The motel manager lingered at the threshold, his pallor betraying his unease. She arrived alone, paid in silence, I never imagined. His voice trailed off, the weight of guilt heavy upon his shoulders. The maid discovered her fate during her routine. Reed's keen eyes swept the room once more, seeking answers in the absence of clues. No signs of struggle, no defensive wounds marring the victim's form. A grim truth emerged, she had welcomed her demise, a tragic waltz with a shadowy figure. Back at the precinct, Reed pieced together the fragments of the puzzle. 3 women, bound by a tragic thread, their lives extinguished in the shadows of anonymity. The whispers of a predator on the prowl echoed through the corridors of fear. The autopsy report has arrived, Detective Hayes announced, laying bare the grim details. Death by strangulation, hands-on, no traces beneath her nails, no violation of her sanctity. Reed furrowed her brow, the pieces of the puzzle refusing to align. This was not a crime of impulse, but a calculated strike, driven by motives buried in the depths of a fractured soul. Days turned into nights as the investigation deepened its roots. Surveillance tapes yielded no revelations, casting a veil of uncertainty over the truth. Elaine Werner, the victim's identity unveiled, a woman of order and precision, thrust into a world of chaos and despair. A breakthrough emerged in the form of a whispered confession from Werner's kin. She spoke of a man, a shadow in her life, her sister divulged, hands trembling as she clutched her lifeline. A colleague veiled in secrecy, entwined in complications, perhaps married. Reed lined in, her gaze piercing the veil of shadows. A name did she utter. See, the sister whispered, a specter of fear dancing in her eyes. Only see past her lips. The spotlight shifted to Werner's workplace, a realm of order tainted by the whispers of deceit. Colleagues painted a portrait of a woman enshrouded in mystery, her secrets buried beneath layers of professionalism. Yet a clandestine liaison emerged from the shadows, a thread connecting her to a figure veiled in darkness. Charles Emerson, the senior vice president, stood at the nexus of suspicion, his facade a mask of innocence. Alibis crumbled beneath Reed's scrutiny, his gaze a well of deception hiding untold truths. "Did your paths cross beyond these walls?" Reed inquired, her tone a veil of nonchalance. A flicker, fleeting as a ghost, danced in Emerson's eyes, only within these confines. In the depths of forensic scrutiny, partial prints from Werner's belongings whispered a damning tale. Emerson's veneer fractured, revealing a truth stained in blood and betrayal. "We shared a bond," he confessed, his words laden with regret. Yet she threatened to unveil our secret to the world. Enough to extinguish a life, Reed's gaze bore into his soul, seeking redemption in a sea of sin. Emerson's resolve wavered, his mask slipping to reveal the darkness within. "I never tread in those halls of despair," he protested, his words a fragile shield against the tide of evidence. But the truth lay bare in the shadows cast by his deeds. A trail of breadcrumbs led to his downfall, a camera hidden in the recesses of darkness, a web of deceit woven with precision. Fibers intertwined, DNA whispered secrets untold, painting a portrait of a man consumed by his desires. In the interrogation room, Emerson's facade crumbled, his defenses shattered by the weight of his sins. "They threatened to unravel my world," he confessed, his voice a whisper in the halls of justice. "My reputation, my vows, my very existence." The trial unfolded in a flurry of accusations and revelations, the courtroom a stage for justice to reign. Emerson stood stoic in the face of his reckoning, a man devoid of remorse, his mask of indifference a shield against the storm. Life without parole became his fate, a sentence etched in stone as the gavel fell. Reed's gaze met his, a flicker of recognition passing between them, a void where empathy should have resided, a darkness that defied understanding. The tale echoed through the annals of time as the door on the left case, a cautionary tale of shadows lurking in the corners of the mundane. Psychologists dissected Emerson's psyche, true crime aficionados delved into the depths of his depravity. Yet for Reed, the echoes of that night lingered, a reminder that some doors once opened could never be shut again. In the depths of the evidence locker, 3 keys lay dormant, silent witnesses to a tragedy untold, each a portal to a world of darkness, a testament to the fragility of human nature in the face of temptation. And as Reed walked the path of shadows, she found herself counting the doors, wondering what secrets lay beyond, what truths whispered in the darkness of the night. Story 21, The Whispering Dollhouse. She had always avoided the attic, finding it unsettling, but when a fierce storm tore through the night, a leak in the roof forced her reluctant ascent. The attic loomed before her, a realm of forgotten treasures cloaked in layers of dust and delicate cobwebs. Nestled in the shadowed corner, a peculiar sight awaited her, a weathered dollhouse, its intricate details whispering of a bygone era. The miniature furniture within was meticulously arranged, each piece frozen in time. Yet as she peered closer, a knot of unease tightened in her stomach. These were not mere dolls, they were miniature replicas, painstakingly carved to resemble her own family. Every tiny figure mirrored the exact positions of her loved ones downstairs, with one unsettling exception. The figure meant to represent her was not seated like the others, but standing by the attic door, a silent sentinel in the eerie tableau. Her fingertip traced the tiny wooden form, feeling the ghostly presence it held within the miniature world. A shiver raced down her spine, unrelated to the chill breeze that whispered through the rafters. The dollhouse should not have been there. This was not her childhood home, but a temporary abode her family had recently occupied. The discovery sent a tremor of dread through her, prompting an urgent call to the authorities. Law enforcement arrived at the suburban dwelling, greeted by a family gripped by fear, refusing to venture back into the attic. Detective Sarah Harmon, the lead investigator, initially dismissed their concerns as mere paranoia, attributing it to the adjustment to a new environment. However, the chilling detail of the miniature figures could not be overlooked. Each tiny replica captured a distinctive trait of the family members: a father's receding hairline, a son's favored hoodie, a mother's subtle birthmark. It was as though an unseen observer had woven their lives into this twisted tapestry of surveillance. Forensic analysis uncovered fingerprints on the dollhouse that did not belong to any family member. Even more disturbing were the microscopic cameras hidden within the miniature figure's eyes, all linked to a sophisticated surveillance system concealed beneath the dollhouse. The investigation took a sinister turn as it unraveled a web of obsession and intrusion. The positions of the miniature figures mirrored not just one evening, but days of the family's routines, suggesting a meticulous observer had studied them in intimate detail. A hidden entrance in the pantry revealed a secret space beneath the house, where remnants of a clandestine existence were discovered. Food wrappers, water bottles, and a solitary sleeping bag hinted at an unwelcome lodger who had dwelled beneath the unsuspecting family for weeks. The absence of forced entry confounded investigators. Property records revealed a haunting truth: the house had stood vacant for months before the family's arrival, following the passing of its elderly owners. Interviews with neighbors unveiled a veil of ignorance shrouding the hidden reality within the walls. Digital forensics unveiled a chilling revelation: the surveillance data was being transmitted to an external server, leading investigators to a nondescript apartment across town. Within its walls, a chilling obsession unfurled a shrine of images capturing the lives of the Morgan family and previous occupants. Journal entries meticulously detailed the daily rhythms of each family member, a testament to a mind consumed by possession. Dozens of unfinished dollhouses stood as silent witnesses to a twisted ritual of control, each representing a different household under scrutiny. The apartment's inhabitant, Martin Wells, son of the deceased homeowners, revealed a disturbing fixation during interrogation. His calm demeanor belied a fractured psyche, haunted by a need to reclaim what he had lost. The dollhouses had become his conduit to ownership, a distorted reflection of his fractured reality. As the truth unfurled, the Morgan family sought solace in a new sanctuary, far from the watchful eyes of a disturbed mind. Yet the specter of surveillance lingered, a shadow that refused to fade. Rebecca's words echoed in the empty spaces of their new home, a testament to the enduring fear that someone somewhere still played with their lives like pawns in a malevolent game. The court's judgment fell heavily on Wells, condemning his violation of privacy and sanity. The case prompted a reevaluation of real estate protocols, a stark reminder of the unseen dangers lurking within the walls of seemingly ordinary homes. The tale of the Whispering Dollhouse remains a cautionary whisper in the night, a reminder that behind closed doors, secrets may stir and unseen eyes may watch, waiting for the moment to strike. Sleep tight, dear listener, and may your dreams be free of miniature shadows dancing in the dark. Story 22. The apartment had sat silent for months, untouched by life's hustle and bustle. When the new tenants crossed its threshold, they expected only cobwebs and whispers of the past lingering in the air. Yet one door resisted their gentle persuasion, steadfastly locked from within. With a creak and a sigh, the landlord forced it open, revealing a closet shrouded in mystery. Instead of forgotten coats or dusty relics, the walls bore witness to a silent struggle etched in deep, uneven scratches, a silent plea for freedom trapped in the wood's embrace. Nestled in the shadows, an ancient flip phone lay dormant, its screen illuminated by a single unread message. Detective Morgan Shaw, with a career woven with the threads of darkness, felt a shiver dance along her spine at the sight. It wasn't the typical scene of violence that unsettled her, but the silent screams etched into the closet walls, a tale of captivity and desperation. Forensics now, she murmured to her partner, Officer Reed, who diligently captured the haunting marks on camera, and fetch me the records of those who came before. The message on the phone whispered ominous words, "I know what you did." The landlord, a figure of nervous energy and secrets, revealed the previous tenant's departure, leaving rent unpaid and a void in their wake. "A quiet soul, that one," he muttered, eyes avoiding the closet's dark mouth. "No trouble until she vanished." Forensic analysis uncovered a haunting truth. Within the scratches, traces of blood intertwined with the grooves, most belonging to a single soul, Emma Caldwell, missing and mourned by those left behind. Yet 2 DNA strands defied logic, one unclaimed by any known entity, the other belonging to a man declared deceased years prior. Shaw's brow furrowed in confusion at the enigma before her, a puzzle with missing pieces scattered in the shadows. Emma's dwelling spoke in whispers of her interrupted existence, unopened mail, a lonely mug left to gather dust, a bed meticulously made. Her phone records painted a story of solitude interrupted by a mysterious figure, a shadow in the night creeping closer before snatching her away into the darkness. As the pieces aligned, a portrait emerged, a new boyfriend, nameless and enigmatic, lurking in the periphery of Emma's life. Surveillance footage glimpsed a figure shrouded in anonymity, a man with a hidden face trailing in Emma's wake, a specter of the night. The missing link emerged in the form of fingerprints, a ghost from the past imprinted on the closet's knob. Derek Mercer, a man long declared dead, now haunting the present with his twisted presence. Shaw's mind spun a web of connections, linking Emma to another lost soul, Lynette Porter, a ghost from the past reawakened in shadows. A trail of breadcrumbs led them to a desolate property, a haven of horrors orchestrated by Mercer's twisted hand. Behind heavy doors, Lynette Porter awaited, a specter of suffering bound by Mercer's cruel fantasies. Dark journals chronicled his descent into madness, photographs capturing the essence of his obsession, and videos revealing the depths of his depravity. The hunt for Mercer spanned realms, a shadow slipping through the cracks of justice. As the net closed in, a chilling truth emerged. Mercer's desire was not just to end life, but to prolong suffering, to revel in the agony of those ensnared in his malevolent web. Captured at a bus terminal, Mercer clutched a ticket to oblivion, a mask of tranquility veiling the storm within. In his possession, remnants of his past crimes whispered of a darkness that defied comprehension. During interrogation, Mercer spun tales of deceit and delusion, his calm facade a mask for the horrors he had wrought. The trial unveiled the intricate web of lies he had spun, a tapestry of darkness woven with threads of deceit. The jury's verdict echoed through the courtroom, sealing Mercer's fate with a finality that echoed through the ages. As he faced a lifetime behind bars, a faint smile graced his lips, a flicker of satisfaction in the face of his twisted legacy. Lynette Porter's voice rang out in the hallowed halls of justice, a beacon of light in the darkness Mercer had cast upon their lives. While he rots in shadows, I shall dance in the sunlight, her words a promise of resilience in the face of unspeakable horrors. The case reshaped the landscape of missing persons investigations, a testament to the resilience of those left behind. Detective Shaw kept a memento from the case, a piece of the closet door, a reminder of the silent cries etched in wood, a testament to the strength of those who fought to survive against all odds. Story 23: The Enigmatic Manor. The new homeowners brushed off the crackling of the old intercom system in their Victorian manor as a mere quirk. It whispered late at night, a relic of the past, rewired but forgotten. One fateful night, driven by curiosity, the husband pressed the button. A voice crackled through the speaker, chilling him to the core. "Why did you come back?" he heard, causing his hands to tremble. His wife, standing behind him, denied speaking those words. Nestled among ancient oak trees, the manor's weathered exterior concealed a modern interior, attracting Daniel and Meredith Parker with its historical charm. Purchased at a surprisingly reasonable price, the property intrigued them, despite the real estate agent's uneasy demeanor during the initial tour. The vintage intercom system, connecting all rooms, had won the hearts of the history-loving couple. Detective Sarah Reeves arrived at the manor in her unmarked vehicle, the gravel crunching beneath the tires adding to the eerie atmosphere. The call suggested a break-in, but the dispatcher's tone hinted at a deeper mystery. Daniel, his face pale in the dim light, led Detective Reeves through the grand foyer, recounting the strange events that unfolded with the intercom system. Meredith, tense on the antique sofa, revealed a shocking discovery hidden behind a wall, a small leather-bound journal. Carefully turning the brittle pages, Detective Reeves uncovered the writings of Alina, the previous owner, detailing her fears of her husband Vincent's intentions to harm her. The final entry, 30 years old, hinted at a tragic end to Alina's tale. The investigation revealed the tangled history of the Blackwoods, the former owners of the manor. Property records unveiled the abrupt sale of the house by Vincent after Alina's disappearance, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. As the team delved deeper, ground-penetrating radar exposed anomalies beneath the garden shed. The excavation unearthed human remains, a woman in her 40s, bearing signs of a violent death. Vincent Blackwood, now elderly and residing in a care facility, confessed to the murder when faced with the evidence. His chilling admission revealed a twisted web of deception and manipulation, painting a sinister portrait of his past. The trial concluded swiftly, with Vincent pleading guilty to his crimes, bringing closure to a decades-old mystery. Daniel and Meredith, unable to shake off the dark shadows looming over the house, bid farewell to the manor, holding a solemn memorial for Alina in the restored garden. The intercom system, harbinger of secrets, was removed by the new owners during renovations. Whispers of static lingered during the process, dismissed as mere interference. Detective Reeves revisited the Blackwood case file, pondering the enigmatic nature of the manor that had finally unveiled its dark past. The house, a silent witness to the crimes of the past, had found a way to speak through time, ensuring justice prevailed. Known as the house that answered back, the manor whispered its secrets to those who dared to listen. Driving past the property on her way home, Detective Reeves slowed down, the window cracked open, catching whispers carried on the wind. The mystery of the manor remained, a haunting reminder of the voices that echoed through its walls, forever entwined with the shadows of the past. Story 24. The aged apartment possessed its peculiarities: pipes that groaned, floorboards that creaked. Yet the new tenant sensed that what she heard transcended the ordinary. The footfalls rang out from above, a deliberate rhythm that cut through the stillness of the night. Perplexed, for she resided on the topmost floor, she summoned her courage one night and tapped the ceiling with a broomstick. The sound ceased. A profound silence lingered. Then a singular knock echoed back from within the ceiling. Sarah Coleman kept the knocking incident to herself, attributing it to the settling of the building, or perhaps a small creature finding refuge in the attic space. Despite the nightly footsteps persisting, she adapted, escalating her TV volume, donning headphones at bedtime, anything to mask the methodical footfalls that traversed her ceiling in the shroud of darkness. Detective Morris was drawn into the tale when a maintenance worker stumbled upon a concealed crawlspace while conducting routine repairs. Removing a section of drywall in the hallway outside Sarah's unit to mend a leak, the worker unearthed a narrow passage that defied the building's architectural plans. His flashlight revealed a clandestine living area within scattered food wrappers, discarded water bottles, a soiled blanket, and a weathered notebook. The building superintendent promptly summoned the police. Detective Morris, accompanied by his partner Detective Rivera, encountered the quivering maintenance worker who repeated, "Someone's been living in the walls, someone's been watching." The notebook chronicled intricate observations of Sarah Coleman, her daily routine, visitors, meals, entertainment choices, bathing times, and sleep patterns. The once orderly handwriting descended into chaos in the final pages, adorned with enigmatic symbols in the margins. "The subject no longer responds to my signals," the last entry read. "She has chosen to ignore me. No one ignores me." Forensic teams delved into the crawlspace, discovering fingerprints untraceable in any database. A labyrinth of passages woven into the building's walls and ceilings, some dating back decades, was unveiled. These passages linked to 5 separate units, terminating in discrete observation points, tiny apertures camouflaged as fixtures or minor defects solely in Sarah Coleman's residence. Interviews with current residents yielded no unusual accounts beyond the customary noises of apartment life. Former tenants, however, painted a different narrative. 3 prior occupants of Sarah's unit recounted sensations of being surveilled or hearing unexplained stirrings. One had vacated after a mere fortnight, yet none had come forth, fearing their tales would be dismissed as paranoia. A breakthrough emerged when forensics detected minuscule blood splatter in one of the crawl spaces. DNA analysis linked the sample to Martin Weaver, a former resident who had vanished mysteriously 4 years earlier. Although his family had filed a missing persons report, the case had grown cold. Martin had resided directly below Sarah's apartment. Revisiting Martin's disappearance, Detective Morris learned that Martin had grumbled about noises emanating from above his abode. Confronting the tenant residing overhead, a reserved man named Edward Martin subsequently vanished. Edward departed the following month, leaving no forwarding details. Investigative efforts unveiled Edward's transient living patterns, his preference for top-floor units, minimal social interactions, and abrupt departures. A neighbor from Edward's third residence recalled him as intense, citing his frequent complaints about the necessity of silence. Property records divulged Edward's acquisition of remote rural land. There, a cabin was discovered, adorned with photos and notes. Images of residents from various apartment buildings, including Sarah Coleman and Martin Weaver, lined the walls. Detailed maps of ventilation systems and structural vulnerabilities, along with journals detailing specimen observations and habitat maintenance, were uncovered. At the cabin's heart stood a corkboard adorned with newspaper clippings, missing persons reports totaling 6 individuals, all former denizens of buildings where Edward had sojourned. Beneath the board, marked wooden floor bore deep scratches, suggestive of a weighty object dragged repeatedly. Behind the cabin, cadaver dogs led investigators to freshly disturbed ground, unveiling human remains, and another grave, and another. As forensic anthropologists embarked on the grim task of identifying the victims, Detective Morris revisited Sarah's building. Though the crawl spaces had been sealed, residents sporadically reported odd noises. During the installation of new security systems, maintenance workers stumbled upon a notebook tucked into a corner where the hallway ceiling met the wall. Fresh in comparison to the first, its initial page bore a single line: "They found my old nest, but not my new one." The handwriting mirrored the earlier notebook. The final page depicted a crude sketch of Sarah's apartment layout, a new passage marked in red, and a date for that very night. Officers hastened to evacuate Sarah, only to discover her unit deserted. Her phone rested on the kitchen counter. The television droned on. The shower ran. In the bathroom, a message materialized on the fogged mirror, etched by a finger: "Look up." The ceiling panel above the shower had been removed. The pursuit of Edward, now identified as Edward Mercer, a former construction worker specializing in renovations, persists. His adeptness in building structures facilitated the creation of his covert network of observation points and passages. Thermal scans of Sarah's building unveiled no signs of current habitation within the walls. Sarah Coleman remains absent, her case linked to vanishings across multiple states. Authorities caution apartment managers regarding unauthorized alterations in concealed spaces. Detective Morris, haunted not by the graves or journals, but by the images of unsuspecting residents, envisions Sarah, plagued night after night by those phantom footsteps in an apartment devoid of an upper neighbor. Sometimes, in the solitude of his abode, Detective Morris gazes upward, listening, waiting, pondering who else might be listening in the shadows of the night. Story 25: The Enigmatic Doll. In the dimly lit attic of their newly acquired Victorian house, Sarah and Michael stumbled upon a hidden treasure, a porcelain doll with hauntingly blue eyes peering out from beneath a worn blanket. The doll exuded an air of mystery, its delicate features hinting at a forgotten past. Unfamiliar with its origin, the couple chuckled at their discovery, dismissing it as just another relic of the past. As night descended and they retired to bed, an unsettling feeling crept over them. The atmosphere grew heavy, and an eerie silence enveloped the room. The following morning, to their shock, the doll was no longer tucked away in the attic. Instead, it sat ominously at the foot of their bed, its unblinking gaze fixed upon them. Sarah and Michael, lured by the house's ornate charm and enigmatic history, had unknowingly crossed a threshold into a realm of darkness and intrigue. Detective Rachel Winters was summoned to the scene, where a chilling tableau awaited her. The female victim, found in the master bedroom, lay contorted in a macabre pose, her eyes wide with fear. Nearby, the male victim appeared as if fleeing from an unseen terror. Intrigued by the deliberate arrangement of the bodies, Detective Winters delved into the enigma, meticulously documenting every detail of the crime scene. The neighbors' accounts painted a haunting picture, a shadow glimpsed at an upstairs window, the ghostly laughter of a child echoing through the empty house. Forensic analysis revealed traces of vintage fabrics throughout the house, reminiscent of antique doll clothing. The absence of any tangible evidence pointing to an intruder baffled the investigators, as if the perpetrator existed beyond the realm of the physical. Delving into the property's dark history, Detective Winters uncovered a disturbing pattern of unexplained deaths spanning decades. Each previous owner had met a mysterious demise, their lives intertwined with inexplicable occurrences within the house's walls. A newspaper clipping led the detective to a chilling revelation: a troubled doll maker who had once resided in the house, his creations rumored to harbor dark secrets. The final doll he crafted, a replica of his deceased daughter, bore an uncanny resemblance to the doll discovered by Sarah and Michael. As the investigation deepened, a web of supernatural whispers emerged, hinting at rituals and spirits bound to inanimate objects. The doll, a vessel for a malevolent force, seemed to defy conventional explanation, its origins shrouded in darkness. Despite tireless efforts, the case remained unsolved, leaving a lingering sense of unease in its wake. Detective Winters, haunted by the mysteries within the house, made a startling decision to retain the doll as evidence, sealing it away in a secure cabinet. However, the inexplicable intervened once more. The doll vanished without a trace, leaving behind a perplexing void. Detective Winters, her memory clouded by a strange amnesia, found herself at a loss for answers. The house, burdened by its tragic past, changed hands once more, its secrets hidden within the confines of the attic. The doll, a specter of the darkness that lurked within, eluded capture, its presence whispered in hushed tones among those who dared to speak of it. Detective Winters, burdened by the weight of the unsolved case, retired from the force, carrying with her a haunting photograph of the doll maker and his creations. Locked away in a vault of secrets, the image remained a silent witness to the enigmatic tale of the doll that defied reason. And so the house stood silent, its attic a sanctuary of shadows and whispers. On quiet nights, a spectral presence was said to linger, a fleeting reminder of a past intertwined with the uncanny laughter of a child. Story 26. The old costume shop was in its final days, selling off remnants of the past. Amongst the fading memories, a woman discovered a mask on a forgotten shelf, its delicate features eerily lifelike. When she brought it to the counter, the cashier hesitated, murmuring, "That's not ours." Perplexed, she checked for a tag, but there was none. Without a second thought, she carried it home. That night, a soft sound stirred her awake, a whisper of fabric shifting. The mask was no longer on the dresser where she had left it. Instead, it sat on her nightstand, facing her in the darkness. The woman, known as Catherine Reed, was discovered by her concerned neighbor. The front door stood ajar, allowing the morning light to spill into the shadowed interior. Intent on returning a borrowed book, the neighbor stumbled upon a scene that would perplex investigators for years to come. Catherine lay unmoving on her bedroom floor, the mysterious mask vanished without a trace. Detective Morgan arrived on the scene as forensics began their meticulous work. The rhythmic clicks of shutters punctuated the hushed voices of the investigators. No signs of forced entry, an officer jotted down in his notepad. The detective observed every detail, her keen eyes absorbing the scene. A slightly open drawer, a lipstick-stained water glass on the nightstand, all seemingly ordinary, except for the woman who would never open her eyes again. The medical examiner, with a grave expression, noted the uncertainty of Catherine's cause of death upon initial inspection. No visible wounds, no signs of struggle, only the frozen terror etched into her features. Leaning closer, the detective whispered, "Something frightened her to the core." Catherine had led a quiet life as an art appraiser, known for her keen eye for authenticity. Colleagues spoke of her meticulous nature, her ability to spot even the slightest inconsistencies. She could detect a forgery from miles away, her boss remarked during questioning. The detective pondered whether this very talent had inadvertently led to her demise. Security footage from the costume shop revealed a peculiar interaction. The cashier's confusion over the mask was evident, prompting a consultation with the owner, who adamantly denied its origin. During a visit to the now empty shop, the owner nervously divulged that the mask had mysteriously appeared during a clearance sale, untraceable to their inventory. He reluctantly mentioned past occurrences tied to items obtained from a deceased collector's estate under mysterious circumstances. A breakthrough emerged when forensics unearthed microscopic fibers embedded in Catherine's fingertips. She was clutching onto something, the lab technician explained. The fibers, a blend of human hair and an unidentified organic material, remained unidentifiable, a puzzle without a solution in any database. The investigation unraveled a series of deaths spanning decades, each victim acquiring a strange mask before meeting their demise, their faces frozen in sheer terror. Each case remained a haunting enigma, unsolved and shrouded in mystery. A retired detective, having worked on a similar case, shared a revelation. Across a dimly lit room, he passed over a weathered file containing a startling discovery, a set of ancient symbols hidden within the masks, hinting at a ritual involving soul transference. An unexpected breakthrough surfaced from a journal concealed in Catherine's apartment, detailing her unsettling experiences. She sensed a malevolent presence, delving into the mask's origins following the cashier's strange reaction. Her findings linked the mask to a series of enigmatic deaths, her final entries recounting the mask's eerie movements and ominous significance. As evidence mounted strange fibers, Catherine's research, and the pattern of deaths, the medical examiner concluded that extreme fear had triggered Catherine's fatal cardiac arrest. What terror could instill such paralyzing dread, halting a heart in its tracks? The investigation took a chilling turn when surveillance footage captured a figure leaving Catherine's home, donning a mask reminiscent of her features, but moving with an unnatural, mechanical gait. The detective issued an alert for the missing mask, yet it remained elusive until reports emerged 6 months later of a similar mask surfacing in a distant vintage shop, swiftly sold to an unnamed buyer. The unsettling case remained officially unresolved, the detective safeguarding Catherine's journal as a testament to a reality beyond conventional understanding. In the stillness of night, a sense of being watched would occasionally rouse her, prompting a quick check of locks and windows, a silent prayer to ward off the lurking presence of the malevolent mask, a vessel seeking a new host, perpetuating an ancient cycle of terror. The mask lingered, waiting to be discovered once more, and when it resurfaced, another unsuspecting soul would awaken to its ominous presence, empty eye holes fixated on the essence within, hungering for what lies behind the facade of humanity. Story 27. The old Polaroid held secrets within its faded hues, capturing moments long past in a snapshot of a birthday celebration forgotten by time. Amongst the smiling faces and flickering candles, a hidden presence lingered, barely noticeable at first glance. The daughter, Sarah Winters, stumbled upon the box of old memories while clearing out her mother's attic after the solemnity of a funeral. The simple label "Memories" on the cardboard box hinted at joyous occasions, yet what lay within unleashed a chilling mystery that would haunt Sarah's nights. In the first photo, a dark silhouette loomed at the edge of the frame, barely discernible during Sarah's 7th birthday party. As she sifted through the collection, the figure seemed to move closer with each subsequent snapshot, inching its way into the heart of the family gatherings. It was a man, half hidden in shadow, a phantom presence standing just beyond the glow of the candles, unnoticed by all but the lens of the camera. Sarah's trembling voice echoed through the phone as she reached out to her father, seeking answers to the enigmatic figure haunting the photographs. The man in the background, unrecognized by anyone, sent shivers down her spine and raised questions that lingered like a shadow in her mind. Her father's shaken response only deepened the mystery, denying the existence of a stranger amidst cherished memories. Seeking resolution, Sarah turned to Detective Marcus Reed, laying out the eerie progression of the figure through the photos on his desk. Raindrops tapped against the windows of the precinct, casting dancing shadows that matched the uncertainty in Sarah's heart. The detective's keen eyes traced the phantom's movements, a calculated journey through the captured moments of joy and innocence. As Sarah unveiled more photos from different years and gatherings, the mystery deepened, revealing a pattern of presence across decades. Each image held clues hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered by the relentless pursuit of truth. With the help of modern technology and dedicated specialists, the obscured figure began to take shape, revealing a chilling connection to a dark past. Dental records provided the key to unlocking the mystery, linking the shadowy figure to Robert Keller, a man with a sinister past of child abductions that had plagued the region years ago. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place, painting a grim picture of hidden horrors concealed within the innocent fade of family celebrations. Keller's presence in the shadows of the photographs marked a sinister legacy that had eluded justice for far too long. The excavation of Keller's former residence unearthed chilling evidence, confirming the nightmares that had haunted families for years. Remains found near the vacation properties tied the mysterious figure in the photos to the unspeakable crimes of the past, bringing closure to cases long considered cold. Sarah sat in solitude, surrounded by the chilling revelations that had shattered the illusion of safety preserved in the faded photographs. The shadowy figure, once a ghostly presence in the background of family gatherings, had now been brought into the harsh light of justice. His hidden actions, captured in frozen moments of time, had finally come to light, offering closure to those who had suffered in silence for too long. As Sarah carefully placed the photos back into the box, they stood as a testament to the unseen threats that lurk beneath the surface of cherished memories, waiting to be unveiled by those brave enough to seek the truth.